Hello and welcome back to another video. This is the first episode of story where Naruto responds to his isolation in a way that deviates from canon. What strategies will Konoha employ to handle a seal master Jinchuriki who possesses a subdued attitude yet an outrageous perverted side? Please like and subscribe to show your support. It's high time to begin. Naruto Uzumaki had always felt like an outsider, ever since he could remember. People seemed to operate on a wavelength he couldn't quite tune into, speaking in riddles he couldn't decode. It wasn't that Naruto lacked intelligence, it was something else, something more elusive, some gap between him and the rest of the world that he couldn't bridge. He watched people constantly, trying to figure out what made them tick, hoping for a pattern he could grasp. But whatever he thought he found always slipped through his fingers, inconsistent and confusing. People, in his eyes, were a riddle he couldn't solve. And then there was the way they treated him, like he was something to be feared, though Naruto didn't know why. When he was 7, he asked a shopkeeper about it, having grown tired of the way people glared at him. He hadn't exactly been polite about it either, his frustration bubbling over in his bluntness. "What's your deal?" he'd asked, causing the man to nearly drop the broom he was holding. The shopkeeper's response was terse, almost panicked. "Nothing's my deal. Leave." But Naruto wasn't one to back down, especially not when he sensed someone was hiding something. "No, there's something. You dislike me, but I've never done anything to you. I want to know why." That seemed to make the man even more nervous. In truth, the shopkeeper didn't dislike Naruto, not in the way the boy thought. It was fear that gnawed at him, fear of what the boy contained. Naruto might not have been the Nine Tails, but the village knew all too well the destructive power sealed inside him. And how could a mere child be expected to control something so dangerous? It was easier to keep Naruto at arm's length, to pretend he didn't exist, than to confront the fear and uncertainty. But he couldn't explain that to Naruto, so he pushed the boy away and closed his shop for the day, hoping to drown his discomfort in a bottle later that night. Naruto didn't stop there. He asked several more villagers why they treated him with such disdain, but each time the answer was the same, a shrug, a refusal to engage. His Aji-san, the Hokage, eventually told him to stop asking. "They won't tell you, and neither will I," the old man had said, his face lined with sorrow and regret. Naruto knew he was beaten, at least for now. But if he couldn't get answers, he was determined to get something in return. So, he asked the Hokage for a favor, a request that would set him on a path that would change everything. While people were a puzzle Naruto couldn't crack, books and nature were his sanctuary. He could spend hours either buried in a book or training in the woods, trying to make sense of things on his own. School, however, was a different story. It felt pointless to him. Why should he listen to teachers who simply regurgitated what was written in the textbooks? It wasn't learning, it was memorization, and that bored him to no end. Irika-sensei, his academy teacher, constantly pushed him to try harder, but Naruto pushed back just as stubbornly. He didn't see the point in practicing the same things over and over, especially when they didn't seem to work for him. Take the clone jutsu, for example. No matter how many times he tried, Naruto couldn't master it. Irika would tell him he needed better chakra control, but when Naruto pressed for details, he was met with vague, unhelpful responses. "What does that mean, chakra control?" Naruto would ask, exasperated. "The better you control your chakra, the better you can perform your jutsu," Irika would reply, clearly trying to be patient. "But how do you measure control? How many units of chakra does it take to make a clone? You just have to feel it, Naruto." That was the final straw for Naruto. "You've been an utter disappointment," he muttered, walking out of the classroom. He wasn't being rude, not really. He just couldn't understand why nobody could explain things to him in a way that made sense. For a while, it seemed like Naruto would forever be a misfit, wandering through a world that didn't speak his language. But then one day, everything changed. Iruka-sensei gave a brief demonstration on Fuinjutsu, the art of sealing. The moment Naruto saw the complex symbols flow across the paper, something clicked. For the first time, something in the world made sense to him in a way nothing else ever had. He was instantly fascinated, hooked by the intricate logic of it. He couldn't let the opportunity slip by. That very day, he called in his favor from the Hokage. If nothing else, Naruto was determined to learn Fuinjutsu, to master this art that finally felt like it had a place for him. The Hokage agreed, but with a stern warning. You must be extremely careful, Naruto. Even the basics of Fuinjutsu can be dangerous if you're reckless. And your calligraphy must be perfect, no shortcuts. If I see you being irresponsible, I'll take your materials away. Define irresponsible, Naruto said, eyes gleaming with determination. Attempting things you haven't properly prepared for, or rushing ahead without mastering the basics. Naruto considered this for a moment before proposing, what if I demonstrate my skills with a project or test before moving on to the next level? The Hokage smiled at the boy's seriousness. That would be acceptable. They shook hands on it, sealing their own little contract. Naruto's speech had become more refined as he read more and more difficult books, and the Hokage couldn't help but chuckle at the boy's formal tone. But there was one last stipulation. You can't skip the academy, no matter how interested you are in Fuinjutsu, the Hokage said with a mischievous grin. Naruto's face fell into a pout, but the Hokage only laughed. He'd had to deal with many stubborn students in his day, and he knew Naruto would have abandoned all other pursuits to focus solely on Fuinjutsu if he wasn't kept in check. The day Naruto received his 10,000-page volumes on Fuinjutsu, several guides on calligraphy, and a pristine calligraphy set was nothing short of life-changing for him. He dove into his studies with an intensity he had never shown at the academy. While he barely scraped by in his schoolwork, his progress in Fuinjutsu was remarkable. By the end of the school year, he had already made it through 2 volumes of dense, complex material. The first volume dealt with seal recognition and foundational languages, ending with the creation of a basic storage seal. The second volume introduced more advanced concepts, like explosive tags and building layered arrays. Naruto absorbed it all like a sponge, and even the Hokage was impressed by his dedication. Whenever the Hokage praised him, Naruto felt a strange warmth inside, something he hadn't experienced often. When he asked what the feeling was, the Hokage explained that it was a mix of pride and acknowledgement, emotions that grew stronger when the praise came from someone who truly cared about you. Naruto was surprised to realize that people could feel more than one emotion at once. It was a revelation that complicated his understanding of others, but it also opened a new door in his quest to understand the world. He knew now that his theories about people's reactions had been too simplistic, that emotions were layered and complex, much like the seals he was learning to master. With that knowledge, Naruto resolved to return to the drawing board, both in his Fuinjutsu studies and in his understanding of the people around him. He wasn't giving up on either puzzle just yet. As summer break stretched before him, Naruto Uzumaki had a plan, something more structured and deliberate than his usual routine of sporadic training and people watching. His Aji-san, the Hokage, had often stressed the value of efficiency, especially when it came to training. Naruto, ever the diligent learner when something interested him, took that advice to heart. He read through several books on project management, figuring out how to organize his summer for maximum productivity. His mission was clear: fix his weaknesses as a shinobi, starting with the biggest hurdle, his chakra control. It had always bothered Naruto how others made it sound so simple. Improve your chakra control, they'd say, but no one could explain how in a way that made sense to him. It was through his studies in Fuinjutsu that he finally began to unravel the mystery. The third volume of his sealing books, focused on manipulating chakra networks, became a revelation. It detailed how suppressor seals, paralysis seals, and even shock tags worked by connecting to the body's chakra system. It was the first time Naruto saw a full diagram of the chakra network, every tenketsu marked with precision. When he moved on to the fourth volume, diving into barrier and detection seals, he couldn't help but feel inspired. He'd devoured both volumes in the first month of his break, each one sparking ideas about how he could use sealing techniques to address his chakra control issues. For once, the young Uzumaki had found a path that made sense to him, and he wasn't about to let it go. His first step was to figure out why his chakra control was so poor. After countless attempts at clone jutsus that failed in spectacular fashion, Naruto realized the problem ran deeper than just lack of practice. He experimented with seals, creating and testing 12 different designs, each with dozens of trials. Eventually, he came up with a seal array that could measure chakra output. When he tested it with his Aji-san's help, he was shocked to discover his chakra reserves were comparable to the Hokage's. That was not normal. Naruto's chakra reserves were far too large for a kid his age. After some research at the library, he learned that chakra networks typically expand and mature with age and training, growing alongside one's capacity. But Naruto's network clearly hadn't caught up to his chakra reserves, which explained why he struggled to control it. It was like trying to pour a river through a garden hose. No amount of control exercises would fix that fundamental mismatch. Naruto knew he needed a solution that went beyond the standard training. He sketched out ideas for a supplementary chakra network, something that could redirect his excess chakra or help expand his existing one. But there was one major problem: how could he apply such an intricate and complex seal to himself? And then, there was the other issue, the mysterious seal on his stomach, the one he'd never quite understood. Driven by curiosity and frustration, Naruto sought out his Aji-san to ask about the seal directly. Hiruzen was sitting in his office when the boy appeared, calm but determined. Aji-san, Naruto began, lifting his shirt slightly to reveal the swirling pattern on his stomach. What's the deal with this seal? The Hokage, who had long since stopped seeing Naruto as the container for the Nine Tails and simply saw him as a beloved surrogate grandson, felt a familiar twinge of guilt. Naruto's upbringing had been hard enough without the weight of knowing the village had made him a sacrifice. Yet, Hiruzen had always known this moment would come, the moment when Naruto would ask about the burden he carried. The Hokage worried how the boy might handle the truth. It could overwhelm him, or Naruto might accept it with the same blunt pragmatism he applied to everything else. Not wanting to take the risk, Hiruzen did something he hadn't done in a long time: he bargained. "Naruto-kun, if you wait until after you graduate to learn about that seal, I'll teach you a jutsu," he said, knowing full well that jutsu were the surest way to distract the boy. Naruto's eyes narrowed with interest. "What kind of jutsu?" Hiruzen chuckled. "Something that fits your needs. You said you wanted something like a semi-autonomous clone, didn't you?" Naruto's face lit up. "Yeah. All the clones I've seen so far just seem weak. Most clones, like water or stone clones, are useful in specific environments. They're sturdy, but not long-lasting." Hiruzen paused, watching Naruto's eager expression. "However, there is another. It's more taxing, but I think you can handle it." "I've got plenty of chakra to spare," Naruto replied, a grin spreading across his face. "What's the jutsu?" "The Shadow Clone Jutsu," Hiruzen said, eyes twinkling. "But Naruto-kun, you are never to send a clone to school in your place." Naruto blinked. "Why would I do that? I wouldn't learn anything if I did." The Hokage nodded approvingly. "True. What's special about this jutsu is that when the clone is dispelled, all of its memories and any unused chakra return to you." Naruto's eyes widened as he realized the potential of the technique. "Wait, so, every time a clone experiences something, I get the memories? That's genius. This is the greatest jutsu ever invented." His excitement was palpable, his mind already spinning with possibilities. Hiruzen smiled, ruffling the boy's blonde hair. My sensei, Tobirama, would have been honored by your enthusiasm. Naruto's grin only grew, thrilled at the idea of learning something so powerful and practical. He had heard many stories about Tobirama Senju from the Hokage, how the man was brilliant, with quirks not unlike his own. That connection gave Naruto hope, that even with his oddities, he could become a great ninja. Together, they left the Hokage's office and headed toward a private training ground. It was a crisp autumn day, the leaves beginning to turn golden as they crunched beneath their feet. Naruto, with his boundless energy, was practically bouncing with excitement as they reached their destination. Hiruzen gave him the instructions, and Naruto picked it up faster than expected. The first time Naruto successfully created a shadow clone and watched as its memories and experience flooded back to him, he couldn't stop grinning. For the first time in his life, he felt like he had a real advantage, something that could help him catch up to the others, something uniquely suited to his overwhelming chakra reserves. This is amazing," Naruto said, his blue eyes sparkling as the clone dispelled. "I can train twice as fast. No, even faster than that." Hiruzen chuckled softly, watching the boy's joy with a fond smile. "Just remember to use it wisely, Naruto-kun." As the day drew on and Naruto continued to practice his new jutsu, the Hokage couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Despite everything, the seal, the village's fears, the boy's isolation, Naruto had an indomitable spirit. He was forging his own path, one built on his terms, and Hiruzen felt more confident than ever that Naruto would one day surpass all the challenges laid before him. As the sun set, casting the training ground in shades of orange and red, Naruto stood by his Aji-san, tired but satisfied. He had learned a powerful new technique, made headway on his chakra control, and most importantly, spent a day with the person he trusted most. It was a perfect end to the day, one that filled Naruto with renewed hope for the future. With his shadow clone jutsu mastered, and his mind filled with new ideas for his Fuinjutsu studies, Naruto felt more ready than ever to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the winter break neared, Naruto Uzumaki completed his most ambitious project yet, the supplementary chakra network seal. It had been a painstaking process, with his clones carefully drawing tiny seals over many of his tenketsu points. The task took 5 long hours, testing Naruto's patience and focus. He'd been glad he paid attention during the meditation lessons at the academy, otherwise, sitting still for so long might have driven him crazy. For all his love of reading and studying, Naruto was still an energetic kid who often had to burn off energy before diving into his work. But once the seal was in place and activated, the discomfort of the initial pain quickly faded. As he settled into a lotus position, Naruto could feel the difference almost immediately. Chakra flowed through him with ease, no longer the wild and erratic force he had always struggled to tame. The artificial network he had designed was working, guiding his chakra smoothly, like water through a well-dug canal. He performed his circulation exercises for an hour, marveling at how much more control he now had. It wasn't perfect, his clones still weren't quite right, but it was undeniable progress. The seal hadn't fixed everything, but it had opened a door. His chakra control would still need work, but now, for the first time, Naruto felt that mastery wasn't an impossible dream. Over the break, Naruto divided his training, assigning several clones to focus on improving chakra control. Each clone stuck leaves to their bodies, holding them in place with chakra for as long as possible. Meanwhile, Naruto turned his attention to another growing concern, taijutsu. The clan children were starting to pull ahead, and Naruto wasn't happy about it. He didn't mind that his classmates were improving, but the gap between him and them, particularly those from powerful clans, was growing too wide for his liking. He could still hold his own against most of the non-clan students, but the clan heirs were another story. Except for the Nara, who barely tried, Naruto found himself struggling to keep up. He spoke to his Aji-san about it, feeling a little embarrassed about how much it bothered him. The Hokage had smiled kindly and explained that what Naruto was feeling was competitiveness, a natural desire to be the best. There's nothing wrong with that, Hiruzen told him. But always remember to keep it in moderation. If you ever find yourself willing to do anything to win, especially against your comrades, then you've gone too far. Striving to be the best is fine, but don't look down on others or forget that, in the end, we're all on the same side. Naruto nodded, appreciating the clarity, but knowing what was driving him didn't solve the problem. The Academy's taijutsu style felt stiff and basic, and it didn't seem to be giving him the edge he needed. When he mentioned this to his Aji-san, the Hokage had chuckled and agreed, explaining that the Academy style was meant to be basic, a foundation for more advanced techniques later. He also pointed out that the Academy library had access to several different styles, but Naruto should have an idea of what he was looking for before diving in. Naruto frowned at the thought. Learning a new taijutsu style without direction could lead him into the same trap he was already in, developing bad habits without even knowing it. The problem gnawed at him, and he and his clones mulled it over all night. A solution wouldn't come until the early hours of dawn. Self-teaching, Naruto realized, came with significant risks. Without a teacher to correct his form, he could end up ingraining mistakes into his fighting style, which would be hard to undo later. But seals could help. If he could create a seal that recorded movements, he could use it to correct himself. He sketched out a complex idea, an array that would record perfect kata movements and compare them to his own. If he performed the movements incorrectly, the seal would send a small shock to alert him. It wouldn't hurt, just a little jolt to let him know he was off. This would be an advanced application of the security seals he had been studying, and it would be difficult, but Naruto was confident he could figure it out. Of course, he would need someone proficient in taijutsu to provide the perfect baseline, someone good enough to record. And while that would solve one problem, it wouldn't be enough on its own. Perfect kata wouldn't make him a perfect fighter. He'd still need someone to spar with. Winter descended upon the land of fire as Naruto dove deeper into his studies. He'd begun the 5th volume of his Fuinjutsu training, an introduction to intermediate sealing theory. This volume was a significant leap forward, covering new languages and the basics of translating elements of ninjutsu into Fuinjutsu. It included detailed instructions on infusing elemental chakra into barriers and methods for suppressing enemy jutsu. It was the most difficult material Naruto had tackled so far, and he had to rely heavily on outside texts, as well as his Aji-san's guidance, to understand the concepts. It took him 3 months to finish, wrapping up just as spring began to creep in. The 6th volume was more focused on practical applications, speed writing, how to write seals on the move, and a technique called chakra engraving. This technique allowed Naruto to etch seals into hard surfaces using a concentrated microblade of chakra. It was a rare and slow method, but the seals it produced were far more durable and resistant to tampering. Naruto practiced it using a senbon, enjoying the challenge of engraving small, intricate seals into stone. The new technique also required a significant boost in chakra control, more than the leaf-sticking exercises could provide, so Naruto spent weeks refining his control, much to the discomfort of his clones who were often freezing on top of ponds, practicing water walking in the cold. By mid-May, Naruto had perfected his motion capture array, but it had only become one piece of his overall development. He showed the array to his Aji-san, who was impressed by Naruto's creativity. When Naruto explained his need for a taijutsu expert to help him, Hiruzen smiled knowingly and suggested someone he thought would be perfect for the job, Might Guy, a jounin known for his mastery of taijutsu. The day Naruto met Might Guy, he immediately realized the man was different. "Hello. You must be the most youthful Naruto-kun," Guy bellowed, striking a dramatic pose. Naruto stood in the Hokage's private training ground, a mix of clearings, ponds, and rock formations surrounded by towering trees. The place was hidden from most eyes, but here was Guy, a beacon of loud energy in his bright green jumpsuit and bowl cut. Naruto blinked. I'm not the youngest in my class, so I'm not the most youthful. His Aji-san had always stressed the importance of honesty. Guy laughed, his voice booming. Ha ha ha, youthfulness is not about age, Naruto-kun. Even our venerable Hokage burns with the flames of youth. Naruto tilted his head in thought. So, it's a metaphor? Exactly. Guy exclaimed, giving Naruto a thumbs up. Oh, okay. Naruto accepted this with a nod. Then, should we get started? I don't want to take up too much of your time. Guy's face lit up with enthusiasm. Yash! Let the flames of youth guide us. Naruto placed sealing tags on the key points of articulation on Guy's body and activated the larger seal array beneath him. Then, with wide eyes, he watched as Might Guy flowed effortlessly through the movements of Penchak Silat, the style Naruto had chosen to learn. The strikes, the fluid transitions, the seamless integration of grapples and takedowns, Naruto was mesmerized. He had chosen well. This style was flexible, fast, and unpredictable, using the entire body for both offense and defense. Watching Guy perform it with such ease made Naruto even more determined to master it. Naruto was so focused on Guy's movements that he didn't notice his Aji-san arrive, accompanied by a small monkey summon. When Hiruzen finally got his attention, Naruto was elated, especially when his Aji-san explained the reason for the monkey's presence. The Hokage had summoned Ubu, a skilled fighter, to record forms of Bukijutsu, specifically for a quarterstaff and rattan sticks used in Eskrima. It seemed the Hokage believed these weapons would suit Naruto's style well. Naruto wasted no time in preparing more seals, his excitement palpable. After Guy finished the taijutsu recordings, Naruto bowed and thanked him, already turning his attention to Ubu 4. The next stage of his training. As Naruto worked with the monkey summon, Hiruzen and Guy watched from a distance. He may not show it fully, Hiruzen said with a smile, but you've made him incredibly happy, Guy. Thank you. It was my honor, Hokage-sama, Guy replied, his usual exuberance tempered with a genuine warmth. Naruto-kun is something of a prodigy when it comes to Fuinjutsu, isn't he? I would have to agree, Hiruzen said, his voice tinged with pride. I used to worry he'd fall out of a tree in some remote part of the village. Now, I'm more concerned he'll blow himself up with some experiment. Guy laughed heartily. Rambunctiousness is a hallmark of youth, after all. It is, and I wouldn't take that away from him for the world, Hiruzen replied fondly. He's progressing rapidly. Now, if only I could get him to apply himself more in school so the rest of the village could see his potential. Guy raised an eyebrow. He's not doing well? Hiruzen chuckled. Oh, he's doing just fine, as much as he wants to do. Naruto feels that most of the information the academy teaches is irrelevant. He once argued that if he were expected to memorize the names of the Hokage, there wouldn't be so many books in the library about them. Guy grinned. There's logic in that, Hokage-sama. Oh, I know, Hiruzen sighed, still amused. But I also don't want him walking around without basic facts or common sense. I asked him to do better for my sake, and he agreed. Guy nodded thoughtfully, then handed Hiruzen a scroll. Here's a regimen for Naruto-kun to get the most out of his new taijutsu style. I believe it will help him grow even faster. Thank you again, Guy, Hiruzen said as he watched Naruto eagerly etching seals with Ubu. You've helped him more than you know. It's my pleasure, Hokage-sama. Watching Naruto-kun's spirit reminds me of my own youth. He will go far. As Guy left the training ground, Hiruzen remained, watching Naruto's relentless pursuit of growth. The boy was truly remarkable, unorthodox, certainly, but full of potential. And Hiruzen knew that someday, the rest of the world would see it too. Naruto's summer training had taken on a new rhythm, one that was disciplined and well-structured, thanks in no small part to the workout regimen provided by Might Guy. Every morning, he woke up at the crack of dawn, eager to tackle the day ahead. His training schedule was intense, but Naruto had never been one to shy away from hard work. In fact, the structure gave him a sense of purpose that filled his long summer days with both challenge and fulfillment. However, as Naruto studied Guy's workout plan more closely, a new problem arose. He wanted to get the most out of his training without pushing himself to the point of injury. After all, Guy's regimen was legendary for being physically demanding, and Naruto knew he had to be smart about it. He had already thought of using a modified resistance seal that increased in percentages, rather than jumping in full levels, but that still left the question of how to track his progress. He needed a way to measure his development precisely, to know when to push harder and when to ease off. He didn't want to rely on clones all the time for feedback or lug around bulky equipment, so a more elegant solution was needed. Naruto, being Naruto, tasked his clones with solving the problem. Now that his Aji-san had let him use up to 10 clones at once, they could spread their brainpower over the task, each one considering different possibilities. He left them to think overnight, hoping they'd come up with something useful by morning. And as always, his clones delivered. The next day, Naruto woke up to an excited group of clones eager to share their discovery. Their solution was brilliant, but it required knowledge Naruto hadn't yet delved into: medical ninjutsu and genjutsu. Intrigued, Naruto listened carefully as the clones explained that the combination of these two fields could help him monitor his body's physical condition and mental stamina with precision. They suggested using medical techniques to track muscle strain, heart rate, and recovery time, while incorporating genjutsu to create illusions that would simulate various levels of fatigue or overexertion. This way, Naruto could test himself in a controlled environment without the risk of real injury. Naruto loved the idea. It was complex but efficient, right up his alley. Of course, diving into medical ninjutsu and genjutsu wasn't going to be a walk in the park, but that was what his clones were for. He decided to leave the heavy research to them. Naruto enjoyed reading and studying Fuinjutsu, but there was something about the physical side of training that called to him during the summer. He wanted to focus on building his combat skills, tracking, trapping, fighting, all the stuff he knew would serve him well in the field. His clones, however, could take care of the brain work. His routine was grueling but rewarding. After applying his modified resistance seal each morning, Naruto would start his day with a run. He alternated between normal running and ninja-style running to build endurance and flexibility. Then came stretching exercises to increase his flexibility, followed by strength training. Whether it was doing different types of push-ups or lifting boulders he found in the forest, Naruto left no stone unturned in his quest to build a strong foundation. Next, he rolled out his seal array to help him with his taijutsu and bokujutsu. Naruto practiced each for 2 hours a day, alternating between taijutsu alone and weapons training depending on the day. His taijutsu style, Penchak Silat, was a fluid and adaptable martial art, and Naruto was slowly getting the hang of its fast, unpredictable strikes. On other days, he would focus on weapons, alternating between staff work and eskrima, the Filipino martial art that used rattan sticks. He found eskrima particularly fun. Its quick, precise movements felt right for his nimble frame. Naruto's afternoons were a mix of foraging and honing his survival skills. He practiced trapping, hunting, and gathering food in the woods. After lunch, he'd spend another hour practicing his shuriken jutsu, throwing kunai, shuriken, and even senbon with increasing accuracy. He knew that one day, precise aiming could make the difference between success and failure on a mission. After another round of stretching and a cool-down run, Naruto returned home for a shower and the well-earned relaxation that filled his evenings. Sundays were his only day of rest, which Naruto took seriously. Even he understood the need for downtime. He'd spend Sundays lounging, reading, and indulging in bowls of steaming ramen at Ichiraku's. Meanwhile, his clones worked diligently on solving the tracking problem, combing through the necessary books and resources at the library. They got lucky when they found 2 gems, Healer and Fighter, A Combat Medic's Journey by Tsunade Senju and Forest for the Trees, Illusions and You by Taka Senju. Both books held exactly what Naruto needed to advance his plan. Tsunade's book was packed with valuable information about the human body, chakra circulation, and how to monitor physical strain with medical techniques. She described various exercises and techniques that could help improve chakra control and body awareness, which were crucial to combat medics in the field. Naruto's clones dove into these techniques, practicing basic medical ninjutsu to track muscle fatigue, detect minor injuries, and even measure how well his body was recovering after each workout. But it was Taka Senju's book that really opened Naruto's eyes to the potential of genjutsu. Taka's approach was innovative, using genjutsu not just to deceive opponents, but to create training environments where one could push their limits safely. The idea was that Naruto could cast low-level illusions on himself to simulate various conditions of exhaustion, overexertion, or even simulated injuries. By training under these illusions, Naruto would learn how to fight under pressure without actually risking his health. His clones absorbed all of this while Naruto focused on his physical training, and soon, the pieces started to fall into place. By the end of the summer, they had developed a plan that combined medical monitoring with genjutsu training simulations, integrated seamlessly into Naruto's modified resistance seal routine. For example, after each morning run, Naruto would perform a simple medical check using his clones to monitor his muscle condition, heart rate, and chakra depletion. His clones would report back any irregularities, and Naruto could adjust his resistance seal percentages accordingly. Then, while practicing his taijutsu or weapon skills, he could cast an illusion that mimicked fighting under the effects of exhaustion, helping him train his mind and body to stay sharp even when he was tired. As summer turned to fall, Naruto found that his new training regimen was paying off in ways he hadn't expected. His chakra control had improved dramatically, thanks to the exercises from both medical ninjutsu and the illusion simulations. He was hitting harder, moving faster, and lasting longer in his training sessions. He had even managed to integrate some of the more advanced chakra control techniques from Healer and Fighter into his sealing practice, using fine control to etch more precise seals. Naruto knew he still had a long way to go. His clones had been invaluable in helping him figure out this new system, but now it was time to test it in real combat situations. As the new school term approached, he couldn't help but feel a little impatient, ready to see how far he had come and how well he could measure up against the other students, especially the clan kids. But for now, Naruto was content. He had a plan, a path, and a way to track his progress, a far cry from the days when he was just trying to survive the academy. With his newfound knowledge and steadily growing skills, Naruto knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would be ready. The next year passed much like the one before it for Naruto Uzumaki. The 10-year-old blonde continued to train relentlessly, study diligently, and make time for the things that made him feel grounded, visiting his Aji-san, the Hokage, and enjoying bowls of ramen at Ichiraku with Tuchi and Ayam, who had long since become something like family to him. Slowly but surely, his hard work began to pay off. He started to win, occasionally, against the clan heirs in sparring matches. It was a satisfying feeling, but the victories were few and hard-earned. Despite his progress, there was one person he still couldn't beat, Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke was a relentless fighter, always approaching each match as if losing meant death. Naruto, for all his competitiveness, could see that Sasuke didn't treat his classmates like comrades or future allies. He fought alone, always pushing himself beyond reason, as though he had something to prove. His dark eyes, often filled with a mixture of loneliness and coldness, reminded Naruto too much of the villagers, the same distant, guarded expressions they wore when they looked at him. Naruto didn't dislike Sasuke exactly, but he found himself avoiding the Uchiha whenever possible. His Aji-san had once told him that Sasuke was lonely and in pain, much like Naruto himself. And while Naruto didn't disagree, he found dealing with those eyes exhausting, and he preferred not to interact with Sasuke more than he had to. In the meantime, Naruto continued to make steady progress with his Fuinjutsu studies. He was working his way through Volume 7, which focused on the complex art of linking and merging sealing arrays. It introduced new concepts, how to make different arrays compatible enough to be merged, or how to construct bridges between arrays that weren't. The book also delved into alternative methods of activating seals, such as using weight, temperature changes, or even emotional states. The more advanced symbols and sealing languages required Naruto to slow down, taking his time to absorb each lesson fully. He didn't want to rush, nor did he want to pull his clones away from their ongoing projects. The Academy's curriculum also became more complex that year, shifting from purely physical skills to the softer side of shinobi life, infiltration and information gathering. Iruka-sensei spoke at length about the importance of adopting different personas to blend into enemy ranks, how to craft believable cover stories, and the subtle art of deception. He explained that while the henge jutsu was a useful short-term solution, most seasoned shinobi could see through it, and longer missions required a more nuanced approach. Naruto wasn't sure if he agreed. There had to be a way to make a transformation more convincing. The lesson planted a seed in Naruto's mind, an idea that would one day grow into his first original jutsu, though he wasn't yet sure what form it would take. It was in the middle of July, sitting under the cool shade of a large tree, that Naruto could barely contain his excitement. After months of trial and error, his project was finally complete. In his hand, he held a bracelet of beads, black with orange symbols etched into them. At first glance, they looked ordinary, but Naruto knew that appearances could be deceiving. These beads were the culmination of his hard work, combining elements of medical ninjutsu, genjutsu, and, of course, Fuinjutsu. Taking a deep breath, Naruto pulsed his chakra into the first bead. He felt a subtle feedback of chakra returning to him, and the bead lit up for exactly 1 minute before deactivating. So far, so good. He then channeled his chakra into the second bead, and a translucent screen appeared in front of him, displaying information only he could see. His height, weight, blood type, and detailed chakra characteristics were all there, projected by the bead, a basic diagnostic jutsu that he had learned from Tsunade's book, now woven into the fabric of his creation. He grinned in satisfaction. Next, Naruto pulsed chakra into the third bead, then shot off at full speed. This bead housed a modified tracking seal, one that measured his distance and speed as he ran. Meanwhile, the second bead continued to monitor his vitals, oxygen levels, heart rate, muscle strain, all of it fed back to him in real time. His other beads were just as intricate. One stored a protection barrier that he could activate instantly in case of danger, another housed a compressed storage seal for small items. There were 8 beads in total, though not all were marked yet, leaving room for future modifications. But for now, the project was functional, and Naruto was overjoyed that his year-long endeavor had paid off. After completing his workout, Naruto sat down to review the information displayed by his bracelet. He had turned off his resistance seals for this test, giving him a baseline to measure his future progress. This was it. Now that he had a tool to chart his growth with precision, Naruto was more determined than ever to push himself over the next 2 years, wanting to be as prepared as possible before graduating the academy. He smiled to himself as he stood up, energy coursing through him, and raced home for a quick shower. After cleaning up, he dressed in his usual style, olive cargo shorts and a blue shirt with the white spiral symbol of the Uzumaki clan emblazoned on his chest. He slipped on his sandals, pocketed another bracelet he'd made, and dashed toward the Hokage tower, excitement bubbling over inside him. Without his resistance seals activated, Naruto moved with impressive speed, darting through the village streets with a purpose. When he arrived at the tower, he followed proper etiquette and was quickly granted access to his Aji-san's office. The Sandaime Hokage, always glad to see his surrogate grandson, raised an eyebrow at Naruto's eager expression. He could tell the boy had something important to show him. "Aji-san, I did it. My project, it's finally finished," Naruto said, practically vibrating with excitement as he handed Hiruzen a bracelet similar to the one he wore. Intrigued, the Hokage took the bracelet and slipped it onto his wrist. "What does it do, Naruto-kun?" "You have to sync it with your chakra first," Naruto instructed, barely able to contain his excitement. "Once it's attuned to you, pulse chakra into the first 3 beads. You'll see what it can do, just don't fight the feedback." Hiruzen, trusting the boy implicitly, did as he was told. He pulsed his chakra into the first bead and felt it flow back into him, noting the strange yet familiar sensation of his own chakra returning to his body. Then he activated the second bead, and his eyebrows shot up in surprise as a screen of information materialized in front of him, showing his own vital signs, heart rate, chakra reserves, and other medical details. He deactivated the diagnostic bead and tested the third one, which was a tracking seal designed to chart his progress from training. The Hokage was nearly speechless. I'm so proud of you, Naruto," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "This is truly remarkable." Naruto beamed, his heart swelling with pride. When Hiruzen reached out and pulled him into a warm hug, that familiar feeling of warmth bloomed in Naruto's chest. It wasn't just the satisfaction of completing his project, it was the genuine affection and acknowledgement from the person who mattered most to him. The praise meant everything, and in that moment, Naruto felt truly seen. "You've come so far, Naruto," Hiruzen said softly, releasing the boy from the hug. "I knew you were capable of great things, but this is extraordinary." Naruto scratched the back of his head, grinning sheepishly. "Thanks, Aji-san. I've still got a lot to do. But I'm getting there. And I made one for you, so you can track your training too." Hiruzen chuckled warmly. "I'll certainly make good use of it, Naruto-kun. You've given me quite the gift." As Naruto left the Hokage Tower that day, he couldn't stop smiling. He had built something new, something truly his own. The feeling of success was sweet, but even sweeter was the knowledge that his Aji-san believed in him, really believed in him. And with that kind of support, Naruto knew he could face any challenge the future might hold. The next 2 years of Naruto Uzumaki's life passed with a few significant events that would shape his emotional and personal growth, starting with the unexpected occurrence of him making his first real friend. It happened during one of his regular training sessions, when he heard the soft sound of someone crying nearby. Curious, Naruto went to investigate, and there, hidden behind a tree, he found his classmate, Hyuga Hinata, sitting alone with tears streaming down her face. They hadn't interacted much before, outside of one time when Naruto had unknowingly stepped in while she was being bullied. At the time, he hadn't realized the boys were bullying her. He had simply been confused by their behavior and asked them why they were bothering her. His questions weirded them out so much that they left, and he had shrugged and gone on his way, not thinking much of it. But now, seeing her like this, something clicked in Naruto. He remembered something his Aji-san had told him about emotions. People sometimes needed to be held or hugged when they cried. His Aji-san had said it helped with his grandson, Konohamaru, when he was upset as a baby, so Naruto figured it might work here, too. Without thinking too much about it, Naruto sat beside Hinata and gently wrapped one arm around her. She flinched at the unexpected touch, startled that someone was offering her comfort. "Are you okay?" Naruto asked, his voice filled with genuine curiosity. The question surprised her, as if Naruto truly didn't know the answer already. She shook her head, no, still trying to steady her breaths and gather herself. "May I ask what happened?" "My Aji-san says talking helps." Naruto's sincerity was disarming, his awkward but honest approach breaking through the barriers of her shyness. Hinata hesitated, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm a failure." Naruto tilted his head, confused. Oh? In what way? As an heiress, and in my family's arts. My father doesn't think I'm suitable, she admitted, her heart aching with the shame of it. She had always felt inferior, never quite able to live up to the standards of her clan, and her father's disapproval weighed heavily on her. Naruto's next question, however, threw her off completely. Is he right? Hinata flinched again at the bluntness of the question. She wasn't used to such directness. In her mind, failure was a matter of feeling, of not measuring up, but Naruto approached it so objectively, as if failure were simply a problem to solve. I think so, she whispered, wanting nothing more than to curl up into herself. Then change it, Naruto said neutrally, his tone not judgmental but rather matter-of-fact, as if he were simply stating the most logical conclusion. If you've failed, there must be a standard. You have to figure out why you don't meet it, and then make a plan to achieve your goal. That's what I did when I started challenging the clan heirs when we sparred. Hinata blinked at him, caught off guard by his approach. But I'm not strong like you, Naruto-kun, she said quietly, having seen how much he had improved over their years at the academy. His progress seemed like a steady, unstoppable climb. Naruto gave her a thoughtful look before responding. No, I don't imagine you would be, he said, causing her heart to sink a little, until he added, you're strong like Hinata. So, you should build on that, not try to be someone else. Hinata couldn't help but giggle at his sage-like nod, the seriousness with which he delivered his words. It was an odd but comforting sort of wisdom, and it made her smile, even if only a little. I train every day, Naruto continued, and I don't know if you'd be interested, but if you want to join me sometime and spar or something, I'd be up for it. Hinata was taken aback. Why? She asked softly, unsure why someone like Naruto would offer to train with her. My Aji-san says we're all comrades, so we should help each other, Naruto replied easily. Also, I don't like seeing people sad. It feels wrong. Failing is just a chance to succeed next time, you know? I fail a lot because I try a lot. Hinata, feeling a warmth spread in her chest, asked with a shy smile, so, you're a proud failure? Naruto's grin was wide and bright. I think I like that. Just as he finished, a kunoichi with dark, wavy hair, red eyes, and a bandage-like dress appeared before them. Naruto, with no filter, immediately blurted out, you're uncommonly attractive. The woman, who could only be Yuhi Kurenai, smiled at his forwardness, clearly amused. She had heard about Naruto's blunt honesty and knew it was a genuine observation rather than an attempt to flatter. Thank you, Uzumaki-kun, Kurenai said with a soft chuckle, but some women might get offended if you compliment them so boldly without even knowing their names first. So, introduce ourselves and then tell you? Naruto asked, puzzled. Maybe. But be careful, if word gets around that you call some women attractive and not others, they might be offended, Kurenai teased lightly. Naruto frowned, clearly confused. So, some will be offended if I do, and others if I don't? This is confusing. I'll have to ask Aji-san about this. Hinata giggled again, and Naruto stood to leave. Well, I've got to go. I'll see you around, Hinata. Bye, Naruto-kun, Hinata replied, her voice much steadier now. After Naruto left, Kurenai knelt beside Hinata, concern in her voice. Hinata, what your father said, it isn't true, but Hinata, with a small smile and a newfound resolve in her eyes, interrupted. Yes, it is. But, it doesn't have to stay that way. From that day forward, Naruto and Hinata became close friends. They trained together 3 times a week, and though Naruto could be blunt and awkward at times, he always spoke with sincerity. Hinata quickly learned to understand his unique way of expressing kindness and care. Naruto, on the other hand, gained a different perspective on emotions by spending time with Hinata. She introduced him to concepts like shyness, which he had never encountered before, and she even helped him navigate the ethics of his questionable sexy jutsu, offering gentle advice and corrections. The second significant event over the next 2 years was Naruto's completion of the remaining Fuinjutsu volumes. Volume 8 delved into the complex art of Juinjutsu, how to create them, how to counter them, and even methods of expanding and condensing arrays. It also taught him how to conceal and cloak seals, making them invisible to anyone without the right skills. This was difficult, intricate work, but Naruto approached it with the same determined focus he had given all his other Fuinjutsu studies. Volume 9 was all about spacetime Fuinjutsu and ninjutsu. This volume opened up new possibilities for Naruto, covering summoning and advanced storage seals that could create pocket dimensions, expanding his understanding of how seals could interact with time and space itself. This material sparked his imagination, leading him to his next big project. Volume 10 was perhaps the most exciting of all. It was about materialization, the ability to create complex seals on the fly, from all the various elements Naruto had learned. This volume emphasized creativity, encouraging Naruto to view the symbols and languages not just as static tools but as building blocks for something unique. His skills had grown immensely, and by the time he finished this final volume, Hiruzen Sarutobi proudly declared that Naruto was ready to be certified as a sealing master. There was only one catch: the tests were official, and Hiruzen couldn't certify the results until Naruto became a shinobi. But the Hokage promised that the moment Naruto graduated, he would ensure the certification process was completed. Naruto had hesitated at first, unsure how to process his Aji-san's pride. He saw the joy in Hiruzen's eyes, but the lingering question he'd held inside for so long suddenly bubbled to the surface. "Is Yondaime-sama my father, Aji-san?" Naruto asked, the words catching the Hokage off guard. Hiruzen's expression softened. He could have lied, but he knew that would shatter the trust they had built. He sighed, deciding to tell the truth. "Yes, Naruto-kun. The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, was your father." Naruto blinked, taking it in. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "I didn't tell you because your father had many enemies. People who would have loved nothing more than to hurt you to get revenge. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. I wanted to keep you safe." Naruto was quiet for a moment, absorbing the information. Then he asked softly, "Did my mom and dad, did they love me?" Hiruzen's voice was gentle. "More than anything in the world. They were so excited to become parents, Naruto-kun. You were everything to them. They would be so proud of you now." Both of them were masters of Fuinjutsu. "Your mother, Kushina Uzumaki, was from the same clan as you." "I'm really an Uzumaki?" Naruto asked, his voice a mixture of wonder and uncertainty. "Yes," Hiruzen confirmed. "Kushina Uzumaki was your mother. You carry both her strength and Minato's brilliance." Naruto processed this, his mind working through the implications. Finally, after several moments of silence, he asked, "Is that why people are afraid of me?" Hiruzen hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, but there's more. You see, Naruto, when you were born, the Kyubi, the nine-tailed fox, was sealed inside of you by your father. It was the only way to save the village." Naruto's eyes widened as he realized the weight of this truth. So that was what the villagers had feared all this time. "It wasn't a decision your father made lightly, Naruto-kun," Hiruzen continued. "He believed in you, believed you could bear this burden because no one else should have to." Naruto was silent for a long time, processing all of the new information. The truth of his parents, the burden of the Kyubi, and the reason for the villagers' cold stares. He finally looked up at Hiruzen and said, "It's good to know. I don't feel bad about it. I have you, and Hinata, and even Yuhi-san. I'll be okay." Hiruzen smiled, pride and relief filling his chest. "You've always been strong, Naruto-kun. And I'm always here for you. Naruto left that meeting with his Aji-san feeling lighter, even though his heart carried the weight of new knowledge. He now understood so much more about who he was, where he came from, and why people treated him the way they did. But more importantly, he realized that none of it defined him. He had his friends, his Aji-san, and a growing confidence in his own abilities. He wasn't alone. And with that, Naruto Uzumaki resolved to keep moving forward, determined to honor his parents, surpass their legacy, and forge his own path. No matter the challenges ahead, he would face them with the same unwavering determination he always had. After all, failure was just another chance to succeed. As Naruto sat beside Hinata, reminiscing about the last several years, he barely noticed Hinata take a seat beside him. He smiled at his friend, acknowledging her arrival, and she smiled back. Hinata had changed over the last 2 years. She was still quiet and reserved, but not as shy or insecure. They had fought and struggled but gained a sense of confidence in herself. She realized there was no magic to improving oneself. It was just hard work. And while she may have been easily discouraged in the past, she was not afraid of hard work. She just had to realize there wasn't some personality trait she was lacking. Every day she, with the help of her friend and her caretaker, she pushed herself. The developments hadn't gone unnoticed within her clan, even if her father hadn't recanted his previous statements about her overall worth. "Hi, Naruto-kun," she said. The Hyuga heiress was wearing a two-tone lavender jacket, blue pants with matching sandals. She wore her headband around her neck and her hair was to her shoulder blades. "Good morning, Hinata," Naruto said. He'd also allowed his hair to grow out, the spike staying as prevalent as before, two framing his face and hanging over his headband. He wore an orange and black jacket with a red Uzumaki spiral on the back. His paints were black, as well were his sandals, those coming up to his shins. Naruto still wore his beaded bracelet at all times. Hinata wore hers as well, the beads an indigo color with white irises patterned throughout. He'd given her the collective seals 6 months ago as a token of their friendship, and she treated it like the most precious of jewels. After the brief greeting, the two sat in silence, observing the classroom and waiting patiently. Their silence was ruined by 2 newly minted kunoichi charging in, arguing about who would sit next to Uchiha Sasuke. The two continued on until Iruka-sensei yelled at them to take a seat. They did, but not before Sakura glared at him and Ino winked at him. Naruto simply waved back, really not understanding why Sakuran-san was so mad at him. Soon after he turned 12, he told Sakura, Ino, and Hinata that once they all reached sexual maturity he would be willing to engage in sexual acts with them, as they'd likely be very attractive. He didn't think it was a big deal since it was 4 years away. Sakura-san freaked out and tried to hit him, which she failed to do. Ino laughed and said he was much too forward. Hinata blushed and explained it was indecent to make such an offer with girls he barely knew. He ought and never brought it up again, but Sakura-san has had a sincere dislike of him ever since. "Now, I will announce your teams, do not interrupt me," Iruka-sensei said and began listing the teams. Some distance away, Hiruzen shepherded Kakashi through Naruto's apartment. It was a decent-sized apartment for a child. A living room with a red couch and chair. A coffee table and television. There was also a desk in the corner with books stacked on it. There was also a weapon stand containing a wood quarterstaff and 2 rattans. The kitchenette had a standard 2-sided sink, stove/oven, and shelf space above and below the counters. Kakashi rummaged through the shelves and the fridge. He was mildly surprised at what he found: fruits, vegetables, nuts and recently hunted game. Dairy products as well. The cabinets had instant ramen and granola along with necessary pantry items to cook. Not what I'd expect from a lifelong orphan. He asked me to teach him how to shop when he read a book about shinobi diets. Why did you need to come along with me, Hokage-sama? You wouldn't have gotten in otherwise. Hiruzen said and saw Kakashi's disbelief. He's finished all 10 of the Fuinjutsu volumes. Tested and passed each exam. He's a certified seal master. The dog summoner hid his shock well. Do you understand what I'm telling you, Kakashi? Hi. Even if he should fail the test, he has to be a shinobi. Too much potential not to. Yes. Also, he knows about his parents and very likely knows or will know you were his father's student. Great. Anything else I should know? You know about how he processes and shows his emotions, yes? The Jounin nodded. Then, that should be enough to go on. Okay, I should have enough to go on. I will depart, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen nodded and Kakashi left. Hiruzen did as well and felt the security measures return as soon as he closed the door. He took one last look at the door and hoped he'd made the right decision. As Naruto was in the top 10 of the class, he shouldn't be on Kakashi's team, but he felt he owed the young Jounin. Hiruzen hoped he hadn't done right by one party only to do wrong by another and dreaded the reality that only time could tell. When Kakashi Hatake arrived at the training ground for the infamous bell test, he fully expected to see his 3 potential students hungry, irritable, and anxious, just as they should be after having skipped breakfast on his orders. 2 of them were exactly that. Sasuke wore a stoic mask, but Kakashi could see the simmering frustration behind his dark eyes, while Sakura was more vocal, glaring at him with obvious displeasure. She had clearly taken his orders about skipping breakfast to heart and wasn't happy about it. So much for the shinobi rules, Kakashi mused. But one of them stood out, Naruto Uzumaki. The blonde was sitting calmly, showing no signs of hunger or frustration. His neutral expression betrayed nothing. Kakashi immediately knew what that meant. You ate, didn't you? Kakashi asked, raising an eyebrow beneath his mask. Naruto nodded without hesitation. Hi. Even though it went against my orders? Kakashi pressed. Bad orders, Hatake-san, Naruto replied bluntly. Kakashi couldn't help but smile at the response. Of course, Naruto would see through the deception. The bell test wasn't about blind obedience, after all. Without missing a beat, Kakashi pulled out 2 small silver bells from his pocket and dangled them in front of the 3 genin. You have 1 hour to obtain these bells. The one who doesn't get sent back to the academy, Kakashi declared. Sasuke and Sakura tensed immediately, both of them eyeing the bells with determination. But Naruto's eyes narrowed in thought. Something didn't add up. If 2 people got the bells, that left 1 person behind, so how was there a 2/3 fail rate if only 1 person would be sent back? The math didn't check out. Something isn't right here, Naruto thought. You may begin, Kakashi stated, setting a timer. Without wasting a second, Sasuke and Sakura immediately dashed into the trees to hide. Naruto, however, didn't move. He stood there, arms crossed, his face calm and unreadable. Kakashi looked at him, intrigued. Shouldn't you be hiding? He asked, genuinely curious. Naruto shook his head. No. According to the Shinobi Tactics book I've read, hiding in this situation is unsound. You have what we want, but you have no reason to pursue us. Our inaction benefits you more than it benefits us. And since we had no agreed-upon plan or rendezvous point, the others didn't retreat with the intention of working together. Kakashi blinked, surprised by the analysis. Naruto's logic was flawless. In a real-life situation, he would have no reason to chase after them. As the one with the bells, the advantage was his. Kakashi pulled out his favorite Ika novel and opened it, pretending to read. He was hoping to provoke Naruto into attacking out of frustration or impatience. But Naruto didn't take the bait. Instead, the boy calmly reached into his pouch and pulled out a small purse of Ryo coins, tossing it toward Kakashi. Jounin Hatake Kakashi-san, I would like to enter negotiations for your services, Naruto said with a straight face. Kakashi glanced down at the purse, a bit bewildered. Oh? And what would you like me to do? A retrieval mission, Naruto said seriously. When? Now. Can't, busy, Kakashi replied, gesturing to the bells. Naruto tilted his head. Can I have a bell? No, sorry. If you want one, you'll have to take it. Sasuke and Sakura, who were watching from their hiding spots, thought Naruto was an idiot for trying to bribe their sensei and avoid putting in any real effort. What they didn't see was Naruto tapping one of the beads on his bracelet. Suddenly, kunai and shuriken appeared from seemingly nowhere, all aimed at Kakashi. Kakashi, unfazed, gathered chakra to perform a substitution, but something strange happened, his chakra dispersed, and his body went rigid. The projectiles passed through him harmlessly, they were nothing more than clones. He realized, to his surprise, that Naruto had somehow disrupted his substitution jutsu. Naruto rubbed his chest thoughtfully. I think this feeling is called pleased, he mused. Hatake Kakashi-san, please give me the parameters of the real test. Kakashi said nothing but inwardly marveled at Naruto's perceptiveness. He had figured out that the bells were decoys, or at least part of a larger ruse. Kakashi wasn't testing them on ruthlessness, as the two bells would suggest. The bells are clearly for the taking, Naruto-kun, Kakashi said, still testing the boy. Hi. But they're also a decoy, at least to some extent. Now, please explain the real objective. Sorry, no can do, Kakashi said, a playful challenge in his voice. Naruto's eyes narrowed. I could beat you until you tell me. Kakashi chuckled. Trust me, kid, you don't have the skills or the time to break me. Yeah, I figured as much, Naruto replied calmly. It must be about teamwork, then. The stated objective doesn't match the scenario, and the math doesn't shake out. Two bells, but two are supposed to fail. That makes no sense unless the test is about something else entirely. Kakashi's eye curved into a smile. Well done, Naruto. Now, are you going to release me? Not until Sasuke and Sakura grabbed the bells, Naruto said, his voice confident. At that moment, Sasuke and Sakura emerged from their hiding spots, quickly understanding Naruto's plan. They grabbed the bells, and only then did Naruto deactivate the seal. Kakashi immediately felt his chakra flow return, and for a moment, he stood in stunned silence. This kid had outwitted him. Naruto Uzumaki, fresh from the academy, had set up the field the night before, leading Kakashi into a trap without him realizing it. How did you do it, Naruto? Kakashi asked, genuinely impressed. Naruto smiled faintly. It wasn't that hard. You left late last night, but 2:30 a.m. wasn't late enough. I prepped the field after you left. Kakashi thought quickly, running through the possibilities in his mind. But you didn't emit any chakra to trigger the seal. Didn't need chakra, Naruto said simply. In an instant, Kakashi realized what Naruto had done. Pressure triggers. The purse of Ryo had been a clever distraction to make up for not knowing Kakashi's exact weight. When Kakashi had tried to substitute, the chakra he gathered was the final trigger. He had been led around by the nose by a genin fresh out of the academy. Impressive, Kakashi admitted, his voice neutral, though his pride was slightly bruised. Well, you're a team, for a probationary period. Why a probationary period? Sasuke asked, clearly irritated. Because Naruto broke the test. You all know the objective now, so there's no point in retesting you. But we'll see how you do in the field. Be back here tomorrow at 7 a.m. sharp, Kakashi said before disappearing in a swirl of leaves, leaving the three genin standing there. Way to go, idiot, Sasuke muttered. Yeah, thanks, dummy, Sakura added with a scowl. Naruto remained calm. I'd prefer you not insult me. I don't like it. Besides, neither of you knew the secret of the test, and I have no reason to believe you would have figured it out. I will see you tomorrow. With that, Naruto turned and walked away, leaving Sasuke and Sakura to stew in their frustration. They couldn't argue with him, he had been the one to figure it out, after all. Later, Kakashi found himself in the Hokage's office, surrounded by several other jounin. As soon as he entered, he saw the smirks on their faces and noticed the crystal ball on Hiruzen's desk, which could only mean one thing: they had all seen his humiliation. Team 7, Provisional Pass, Kakashi muttered, slouching slightly as the other jounin burst out laughing. The Sandaime himself had a twinkle of amusement in his eye. Kakashi knew it would be a long time before he lived down being outsmarted by a genin. As the laughter died down, Kakashi headed to the Rusty Kunai, a local bar frequented by jounin, where he found Kurenai, Asuma, and a few others sipping drinks. He joined them, still nursing his wounded pride. He would have gotten any of us, Kurenai said sympathetically, offering Kakashi a small smile. She could empathize. Naruto had caught her in one of his traps before. Uzumaki-kun is a prodigy. So is the Uchiha, and so was the Hyuga last year, Asuma observed. They still couldn't have beaten the bell test. Kakashi shook his head. It's not the same. Neither of them is a master at their craft. The title of Seal Master gets thrown around a lot, but Naruto is the real deal. The Sandaime told me as much, but I didn't take it seriously enough. I gave him time to plan and free rein over the field. That was my mistake. Kurenai smiled knowingly, having seen Naruto's potential firsthand. He's going to give you a lot of trouble, Kakashi. Kakashi sighed, sipping his sake. Yeah. I have a feeling I'm in for an interesting time. And interesting it would be. Naruto Uzumaki was already proving that he wasn't just any ordinary genin. He was something far more dangerous, a prodigy with the power to surprise everyone, including Kakashi Hatake. After the bell test and the less-than-welcome reactions from his teammates, Naruto Uzumaki decided to take a walk to clear his mind. He enjoyed walking, it helped him think, allowing ideas to flow as he moved. The training grounds weren't exactly like the forests he had played in as a child, but they were close enough, providing the tranquility he needed to organize his thoughts. As his feet wandered, his mind shifted toward his future as a seal master. Now that he had officially earned the title, it was time to pick a specialization or two. Being a seal master didn't mean knowing everything about Fuinjutsu, that would be impossible. Instead, it meant that no subfield was beyond his reach if he dedicated enough time and effort. His current knowledge gave him a solid foundation, but now he wanted to contribute something unique to the field. His parents' work, passed down to him through the Hokage, was filled with incredible knowledge. Their specialties were impressive, to say the least. Naruto marveled at the contrast between his parents. His father, the Yondaime Hokage, had revolutionized space-time techniques with the Hiraishin, the flying thunder god. But it was his mother, Kushina Uzumaki, who had truly blown him away. Her expertise in barriers was on a different level. She had created, I control everything around you, fear me, type barriers that could neutralize even space-time techniques. Her notes even contained designs for a barrier that could shut down the Hiraishin, something Naruto found staggering. With her mastery over seals, she could have easily dominated in a purely Fuinjutsu-based fight against his father. Though Naruto held immense respect and awe for his parents' talents, he didn't want to simply follow in their footsteps. He wanted to carve out his own path. While he would certainly learn from them, his shadow clones made it easy to study multiple things at once. His hero had always been his Aji-san, the Sandaime Hokage. Hiruzen Sarutobi's dedication to protecting his people inspired Naruto deeply. That's where Naruto's vision for his future in Fuinjutsu came from, a desire to protect and enhance the safety of Konoha. The beads on his wrist, the personal seal system he had developed, would serve as the foundation for his life's work. Naruto didn't plan on giving those seals to just anyone, only his closest friends and family would have access to them. But they sparked an idea that would guide his specialization. Naruto wanted to become the first Fuinjutsu system specialist. His dream was to revolutionize the way information flowed within the village. Carrier pigeons, paper files, and all the old methods of communication could be replaced by a system of seals that transmitted information instantly and securely. He envisioned a network where Shinobi could relay distress signals, updates, and orders through chakra-activated seals, encrypted, undetectable, and instantaneous. If successful, it would change the way Konoha handled missions, intelligence, and even combat. Distress calls would reach the Hokage in seconds, orders could be amended just as quickly, and vital information would be stored and accessed biometrically or via chakra signatures, making it almost impossible to intercept. Naruto smiled at the thought of it. It would take time, of course. A lot of time. Even though his Aji-san had doubled his maximum clone usage, progress would be slow. But Naruto was never one to shy away from hard work. He decided to start with the communication systems. Creating seals that could transmit messages across distances would be the first step. He had already created shared mass storage scrolls for transporting items, so the basics were there. The real challenge would be perfecting seals that could transmit sound waves, thoughts, or written words. Issues like formatting, stability, and range would need to be solved. But Naruto was confident. It was a long-term project, but one worth pursuing. As he walked, lost in thought, he didn't realize he had wandered into someone else's training grounds until a loud, booming voice interrupted him. Most youthful Naruto Kun, good day. The voice belonged to none other than Mato Guy, Konoha's most energetic and passionate jounin. Team Guy, Niji Hyuga, Tenten, and Rock Lee, were all present, looking somewhat surprised when Naruto didn't even flinch at Guy's shout. Instead, he calmly responded. Hello, Guy-san, Naruto said, looking around the training ground. Have I interrupted your training? If so, I apologize. Allow me to exit. Before Guy could answer, Tenten spoke up, louder than usual. Hold on. You're that kid. Naruto blinked at her, then gave a small smile. Oh, Tenten-san, hello. Don't just hello me after what you did, she snapped, surprising her teammates. Tenten was usually calm and level-headed. Naruto tilted his head slightly, confused. What did he do? Asked Lee, genuinely curious and slightly concerned. He offered to have sex with me. Tenten declared, crossing her arms. The boys blinked, stunned by her words. Naruto, however, remained completely unfazed. Once we reached sexual maturity, he clarified. You're very pretty now, and I imagine you'll be even more so in a few years. I didn't realize it was indelicate to offer until my friend, Hinata, explained it to me. I apologize for the offense. He then gave a respectful bow. Tenten raised an eyebrow, still confused. You apologize for the offense, but not the offer? No, Naruto replied earnestly. I'll still sleep with you once we're older. I'll just present the offer more appropriately in the future. He nodded, as if he had solved the problem with that simple adjustment. Hinata had once explained to him that how you say something matters just as much as what you say. Presentation, she had told him, could make all the difference in how people received a message. Naruto had taken that lesson to heart. Tenten just stared at him, utterly bewildered. Naruto's honesty was so disarming that she wasn't sure how to react. He didn't seem like a pervert at all, just, very straightforward. He was offering her a compliment, in his own strange way, and he clearly didn't mean any harm. She sighed, unable to wrap her head around it, but decided to let it go. She saw Guy-sensei signing that he'd talk to her about it later, so she nodded. Before the situation could diffuse, Neji stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Naruto. "You know my failure of a cousin?" "Yes," Naruto answered simply. "So you agree that she's a failure and always will be?" "I would hope so," Naruto replied. Niji's cold eyes flickered with confusion at the unexpected response. "You don't have to hope," Niji said, a slight edge to his voice. "It's her fate. The gifted and the failures are chosen at birth. I am curious why you'd wish such a fate on her." Naruto stared at Niji for several moments, his blue eyes calm but thoughtful. Then he answered. "Failure in practice allows for growth. My Aji-san says you learn very little from always doing something correctly. Innovation comes from mistakes. Besides, isn't the point of training to push past your limitations?" "It doesn't matter how hard she tries," Niji shot back, his tone cold. "She will never amount to anything. It's already been decided." Naruto considered this for a long moment, his face neutral, before finally speaking. "This has no basis in empiricism." He then turned and walked away, leaving Niji standing there, dumbfounded. The Hyuga prodigy's face reddened with anger, but pride stopped him from yelling after the blonde. A proud Hyuga would never chase after someone to continue an argument. But Niji promised himself that he would school Naruto on the harsh reality of fate soon enough. "What the absolute hell?" Lee muttered, his usual youthful spirit replaced with sheer confusion. He had never seen anyone dismiss Niji so casually or speak to Tenten like that. "Who was that guy?" "That was Uzumaki Naruto-kun," Guy answered, still smiling. "A newly minted genin. He's had a difficult life, which resulted in him having a unique way of understanding things. From what I've gathered, Tenten-chan, he meant no offense." Tenten sighed. "Maybe not, but he's still a little pervert." "Probably," Guy agreed with an unyouthful shrug. After his brief run-in with Team Guy, Naruto continued his walk toward the Shinobi archives, his mind already focused on the tasks ahead. The archives were a plain building, like many others in the village, but inside they held the vast knowledge of Konoha's history, techniques, and more importantly for Naruto, Fuinjutsu. As he passed through the doors and into the foyer, he felt a sense of familiarity and purpose. His feet carried him down into the lower levels of the building, where the more sensitive and restricted documents were stored. After descending a staircase and walking through a long hallway, Naruto came to a set of double doors that were locked by a chakra seal. Placing his hand on the seal, he pulsed his chakra into it, feeling the subtle feedback as the doors swung open, granting him access. Beyond the doors lay a labyrinth of hallways and sealed rooms, many of which could only be accessed by Kaoru, the resident archivist. Kaoru was waiting for him at the entrance, as usual. She was a middle-aged woman, average in height and build, with black hair streaked with gray. She wore a standard Chunin uniform, a blue shirt, green vest, and blue pants, with open-toed sandals that had a slight heel. Officially, she was a career Chunin, but Naruto knew better. Kaoru was a long-serving ANBU, chosen to guard some of Konoha's most precious knowledge. "Good afternoon, Naruto-sama," Kaoru greeted him with a slight bow, her expression calm and professional. Naruto blinked, tilting his head in confusion. He wasn't used to being addressed with such formality. Only a handful of people, his Aji-san, Hinata, and I.M., called him Kun. Being addressed as Sama felt strange. Noticing his hesitation, Kaoru offered a small smile. "I call you Sama because seal masters are highly regarded in Konoha. This tradition dates back to our alliance with the Uzumaki clan and has only deepened since their destruction. Many who understand the significance of your title will show you great respect for what you've accomplished, Naruto-sama." Naruto frowned slightly, still unsure how to feel about it. "Oh. He hesitated again. "Yes?" Kaoru prompted. Gently. "I don't know," Naruto admitted. I normally ask my Aji-san about this stuff. I don't mind you calling me Sama, but I also wouldn't mind if you didn't. Does that make sense? Kaoru nodded thoughtfully. Hi, it makes sense. Some people aren't fond of formality. It could also be that you don't feel you've earned the honorific yet. Either way, do you have a preference for what I call you? Naruto took a moment to think about it. No, whatever you're comfortable with is fine. I'll keep that in mind, Kaoru replied kindly. Now, what can I help you with today, Naruto-sama? Aji-san said it was fine for me to leave some clones here to study, and I'd like to do that now, Naruto explained. Kaoru nodded again. He's already informed me of this. What would you like me to pull for you today? Space-time Fuinjutsu, Naruto answered, his eyes gleaming with interest. I'll get right on that. There's a private room down that hallway, Kaoru pointed to the left. First door to the right. I'll bring the materials shortly. Thank you, Kaoru-san, Naruto said with a polite bow before summoning 15 shadow clones. The clones marched off to the private room, ready to dive into their studies while the original Naruto made his way back upstairs. Naruto exited the Shinobi archives, satisfied that his clones would handle the research while he focused on other matters. He made his way up to the genin section of the archives, where he had already put in a request for some new materials. There were two things he wanted to accomplish today. First, he wanted to learn the Shunshin no Jutsu, the body flicker technique, which would allow him to move quickly across the village. His Aji-san had cleared him to learn it, knowing that it would be essential for a young shinobi like Naruto, who might need to travel across Konoha at a moment's notice. The second item was a book titled Truth of Illusions, by Naori Uchiha, a renowned master of genjutsu. Naruto had already read Toka Senju's book on genjutsu and some of the other basic guides available to academy students, but he craved more advanced knowledge. His growing interest in genjutsu was directly linked to his plans for Fuinjutsu. In release, which dealt with illusions and mental manipulation, was an essential component in creating seals that transmitted information, whether that be words, sound, or even images. The Fuin beads he had created were a good start, but he knew he had a long way to go. There was also the practical aspect. Anyone who could sense chakra would immediately notice that Naruto had an unusually large amount of it. But he planned to use that to his advantage. If people sensed his chakra, they would never expect him to be capable of subtle techniques like genjutsu. By the time they realized their mistake, it would be too late. While Naruto had spent time with Yuhi Kurenai during his training sessions with Hinata, he didn't feel right asking her for help with genjutsu. She was there to train Hinata, not him, and Naruto wasn't one to ask for help unless he had something to offer in return. He hoped that after taking some missions and earning some money, he could approach Kurenai with something to trade for her time and expertise. Until then, he'd rely on books and his own diligence. With the Shunshin scroll and Naori Uchiha's book in hand, Naruto left the building and began making his way to his favorite ramen stand. As he walked, his nose buried in the Uchiha book, he navigated the streets with surprising ease, dodging obstacles almost without thinking. That is, until he collided with someone else, a much taller individual who seemed just as distracted. Before he knew what was happening, Naruto was yanked to his feet. The book had been pressed against his face, obscuring his vision, but when he lowered it, he found himself face to face with a striking woman. She had purple hair tied into a ponytail, a tan trench coat over a mesh shirt, and an orange skirt held up by a blue belt. Her whole appearance screamed confidence, and Naruto found himself momentarily caught off guard by her presence. Shit. Sorry, Gaki, I didn't see you there, the woman said casually. She looked him up and down before smirking. Like what you see, Gaki? Naruto, ever the honest one, nodded. Yes. You're very appealing. The woman, Anko Mitarashi, raised an eyebrow at his response. She hadn't expected him to be so straightforward. Ah, do you have a crush on Enko-chan? You're a little young for me, stud. Naruto shook his head. Crush? As in infatuation? Not currently, Enko-san. And as you said, our age difference would be untenable now. However, I do reach sexual maturity in roughly 4 years, and from my understanding, relationships with significant age gaps are not frowned upon under those conditions. Should I develop a crush, I'd pursue you, if you desired as such. Enko stared at him, wondering if he was serious or just messing with her. His expression was completely sincere, no teasing, no sly grin. He was just, bluntly honest. Enko wasn't sure what to make of it. She was used to people either fearing her or trying to flirt with her, but Naruto was a different case entirely. 4 years, huh? Well, Gaki, 4 years is a lifetime for Shinobi, but tell you what, if you grow up real nice and strong, I'll consider it. Enko finished her sentence with a wink. Naruto nodded seriously and held out his hand. I believe those conditions are reasonable, and I feel we've reached an accord. Enko was so thrown off by his behavior that she shook his hand out of sheer confusion. Sure. As they ended the handshake and started to go their separate ways, Naruto called out again, "Oh, could I draw you sometime?" Enko stopped in her tracks, turning back to him. Trying to get me nude already, Gaki? Naruto shook his head. Only if you want, but it can't be for a mission. Aji-san was pretty explicit about that. He delayed my sexy jutsu. Because of it. Enko blinked, now completely thrown for a loop. Wah. This exchange is starting to hurt my brain, Gaki. I'll see you around about the art project, okay? Sure, Naruto agreed. The name's Uzumaki Naruto, by the way. I know, Gaki, Enko replied with a smirk before disappearing in a shunshin, leaving Naruto standing in the street, his book still in hand. Naruto continued on his way to Ichiraku Ramen, thinking about the strange encounter he'd just had. It wasn't every day he met someone like Enko Mitarashi, and for some reason, he found her refreshing. Her boldness and humor weren't something he encountered often, but he liked it. Shaking his head with a small smile, Naruto tucked the book under his arm and hurried toward his destination, his thoughts already shifting back to the Shunshin no Jutsu and his new plans for Fuinjutsu. After leaving Ichiraku Ramen feeling full and content, Naruto made his way to Yamanaka Flowers, the next stop on his to-do list. He had planned to pick up something for Hinata, a small gift to encourage her, as he knew her family wasn't particularly generous with praise or encouragement. As he stepped into the shop, the familiar sight of colorful blooms greeted him, but behind the counter was Inoichi Yamanaka, the head of the Yamanaka clan. Good AF, Uzumaki, Inoichi greeted tersely, his expression less than welcoming. Naruto, however, paid no mind to the tone. He was used to it by now. Hello, Yamanaka-san, Naruto said politely, standing before the counter. I'm here to purchase a plant. Inoichi raised an eyebrow, leaning forward slightly. Oh? Trying to seduce someone else's daughter? Naruto, confused by the comment, responded matter-of-factly, no, sir. I've not been given any orders to seduce anyone. I'll likely be a chunin before then. Inoichi's eyes narrowed as he processed Naruto's response. He knew about Naruto's unique condition and had studied it for years, understanding that the boy's behavior wasn't entirely normal. But as a father, his protective instincts kicked in hard, especially when it came to his daughter. Still, he couldn't tell if Naruto was simply oblivious to why his comment might provoke anger, or if the boy truly didn't care. Before Inoichi could respond, the door to the shop opened, and his daughter entered. Hi, Dad, Ino called out, holding the door open with her back as she entered the shop. Once inside, she turned to see who the customer was. Oh, and hello, Naruto-kun. Inoichi's frown deepened. It was bad enough that Naruto was in his shop, but now his daughter was addressing him so casually. "Hello, Ino-san," Naruto replied in his usual neutral tone. Ino pouted slightly. "San? You should call me Ino-chan, we're friends." Naruto blinked in confusion. "We are?" he asked, tilting his head to the side. As far as he knew, they hadn't really spoken much in class, let alone outside of it. "Of course, silly," Ino replied with a playful smile. In truth, she found Naruto to be a bit awkward, and his bluntness made him difficult to interact with. Still, after hearing about his peculiar offer in the academy, she saw an opportunity. If things didn't work out with Sasuke, having Naruto as a fallback option wouldn't be the worst thing. Naruto shrugged, not fully convinced by her claim, but also not seeing any harm in accepting it. "I suppose we could become friends." Inoichi, watching this interaction, cleared his throat and interrupted. "Didn't you come here for a reason?" His tone was a little sharper than necessary, but Naruto paid no attention to it. He simply handed Inoichi a slip of paper. "I need that," Naruto said. Inoichi took the paper and read it, nodding as he recognized the plant request. Without a word, he turned and disappeared into the back room to retrieve the item from his inventory. Ino, curious, leaned closer to Naruto. "What are you getting, Naruto-kun?" "A gift for Hinata," Naruto answered simply. Ino raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Am I already that far behind?" Naruto squinted at her, clearly confused. "I don't understand." "Well, you're giving Hinata gifts, what about Ino-chan?" she teased with a playful smile, expecting him to react in his usual awkward way. Naruto, however, took her question seriously. "Oh, I just discovered we were friends today, and I don't know what you like." Ino blinked, caught off guard by his straightforwardness. Naruto paused to think, running through his mental catalogue of how people typically expressed appreciation or encouragement. He was getting Hinata a gift because he knew her family wasn't exactly supportive. Now that Ino had implied she also wanted a gift, Naruto felt it only proper to offer her something meaningful, as well. And then, suddenly, inspiration struck. Without hesitation, Naruto stepped forward, leaned in, and kissed Ino on the cheek. "Congratulations on becoming a genin, Ino-chan," he said, his voice calm and genuine. Ino was stunned. She had only been teasing him, playing her usual game of flirty banter, but Naruto had just raised the stakes. She didn't know what to say. He had completely flipped the script on her, leaving her speechless. What was she supposed to do with that? Before she could gather her thoughts, Inoichi returned from the back room with the requested plant, a small, well-potted flower, ready for transport. Naruto paid for it, leaving the exact amount of Ryo on the counter, and then bowed politely to both Yamanakas. "Thank you, Yamanaka-san." "Good afternoon, Ino-chan," Naruto said, turning to leave. Ino stood there, still slightly blushing and too shocked to respond. Her father, however, was quick to notice her silence, as well as the faint blush on her cheeks. His eyes narrowed dangerously. "Ino-chan, what's wrong?" Inoichi asked, his voice low and concerned. "He kissed me," she whispered, still dazed by what had just happened. Inoichi's face darkened, a murderous glint appearing in his eyes as his protective father instincts surged to the forefront. Naruto had kissed his little girl? It didn't matter if it was a harmless kiss on the cheek, in Inoichi's mind, this was unacceptable. As for Ino, she finally snapped out of her daze, her mind racing with thoughts. Naruto had caught her completely off guard, but that only meant the game wasn't over. If he thought he could fluster her with something as simple as a kiss, he had another thing coming. She would turn the tables on him and win this little game of theirs. With that determination set in her mind, she excused herself from the shop and hurried home, already plotting her next move. Meanwhile, Naruto walked away from the Yamanaka flower shop, his mind already focused on delivering the gift to Hinata. He hadn't given much thought to what had just happened with Ino. To him, it was a simple gesture, a way to show encouragement and appreciation for her becoming a genin. His Aji-san had often said that friends should celebrate each other's successes, and this seemed like the appropriate way to do it. As far as Naruto was concerned, it had been a productive day. He had studied, made a new friend, and now he was on his way to make Hinata's day a little brighter. Naruto made his way toward the Hyuga compound, feeling the familiar comfort of routine settling in. Along the way, he created 5 shadow clones to practice the Shunshin no Jutsu. The clones took off toward Training Ground 3 while Naruto continued toward the Hyuga estate, where the guards allowed him entry without hesitation. By now, they were used to his presence. After several months of training together, Hinata's improvement had become impossible to ignore, even for the more traditional members of the Hyuga clan. Her emerging confidence had impressed many, though there were still dissenting voices, such as the zealot Naruto had encountered earlier that day. As Naruto waited in a simple meeting room inside the Hyuga compound, he reflected on how far Hinata had come since they started training. The room was paneled with rice paper and sparsely decorated, simple and functional, much like most of the Hyuga estate. Soon enough, Hinata entered with her usual soft smile. "Hello, Naruto-kun," she greeted him warmly. "Hello, Hinata," Naruto replied, smiling back. "I wanted to give you this," he said, handing her a small potted plant. "It's just like Uki-san," he added, referring to his own beloved plant companion. Hinata's eyes widened slightly in surprise, and her smile grew brighter. "It is. Thank you, Naruto-kun. I hope I can be as good to it as you are to Uki-san." Naruto gave a small nod, satisfied with her reaction. "Do you have time for a spar?" "Hi," Hinata said enthusiastically. "Let me just put this in my room, and we can head over to the dojo." She returned a few moments later, having changed into a gray training GI, and the two walked together toward an empty training room. Hayashi had cleared a space for them to train whenever they needed it, a sign of his growing acknowledgement of Naruto's role in Hinata's development. As they entered the dojo, Naruto performed a series of hand seals, and the seal on the floor lit up briefly, a modification of his motion capture array that allowed them to record and review their sparring sessions later. Hinata took her position first, smiling softly as she adopted the gentle fist stance, her body graceful, her movements fluid. Naruto, standing about 7 feet away, adopted his own stance. He bent his knees slightly, his body turned sideways to present a smaller target, with his hands up and ready to strike or defend. His fighting style was more raw, a blend of techniques he had cobbled together through training and experimentation. As Naruto inched closer, cautiously closing the gap between them, Hinata made the first move. She darted forward with surprising speed, thrusting her palm toward his shoulder. Naruto shifted his weight back, narrowly dodging the attack by sliding his foot backward and slapping her hand off course. He retaliated quickly with a kick from his back leg, but Hinata was too fast. She jumped back, dodging his attack with ease. Naruto quickly rebalanced himself, not letting the missed kick throw him off. But Hinata didn't give him time to catch his breath. She pressed the attack, dipping low and attempting to sweep his legs out from under him. Naruto lifted his front leg to avoid her sweep, but she quickly followed up with a spinning back kick that connected with his stomach, sending him sliding back. Grimacing from the impact, Naruto's instincts kicked in. He surged chakra into his fingers, forming a makeshift fulcrum. Dropping low, he lunged forward for a double-leg takedown, slipping under Hinata's defenses and taking her to the ground. Hinata's eyes widened in surprise. Naruto's grappling skills had improved considerably over the months. Their sparring matches often devolved into grappling sessions, as Naruto's striking couldn't always match Hinata's precision. Hinata, in response, had taken to studying jiu-jitsu, adding it to her arsenal. She was naturally graceful and flexible, traits that made her dangerous even on the ground. As Naruto transitioned to a side mount, grabbing her wrist to prevent her from using the gentle fist, Hinata responded by rolling out from under him, narrowly avoiding a submission hold. Naruto and Hinata were back on their feet within moments, resuming their stances, and the sparring continued. Hinata's palm thrusts came fast and precise, her gentle fist aiming to disrupt Naruto's chakra network, but Naruto's footwork allowed him to stay just out of reach, ducking and weaving between her strikes. Seeing an opening, Naruto surged forward, catching her with a knee to the body. Hinata gasped slightly, bending forward from the impact, but she quickly recovered. As Naruto attempted a fireman's carry, slipping his arm between her legs to lift her onto his shoulders. Hinata twisted her body, wrapping her legs around his neck from behind. They tumbled to the ground in a controlled roll, each vying for control. Naruto managed to disentangle himself from her legs, but as he stood up, Hinata's kick came fast, aimed directly at his head. He barely ducked under it, distracted for a moment by the sight of her deep blue toenail polish, which looked surprisingly nice on her. He nearly missed the follow-up kick that struck him square in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Before he could react, Hinata had her finger pointed at his temple. "I win," she said with a bright smile, her voice soft but filled with triumph. Naruto nodded, breathing heavily. "Yeah, you got me," he admitted, still catching his breath. The blow to his chest had knocked the wind out of him, but the pain was already starting to fade. The two of them walked to the side of the dojo, off the sparring mats, and took a seat. It was part of their ritual. After every sparring session, they would sink their fuin beads and rewatch the match. The seal Naruto had activated earlier relayed the motion-captured data to their beads, allowing them to watch the spar from a first-person perspective. As they watched, they critiqued their own performances. Hinata pointed out that Naruto needed to work on his footing, and he agreed. He had been too quick to move forward without maintaining balance. Meanwhile, Naruto suggested that Hinata needed to practice managing opponents who shifted levels. He had noticed that she tended to focus on upright targets, which left her vulnerable to sweeps or takedowns. As they neared the end of the recording, Hinata paused the feed and turned to Naruto with a curious look. "Naruto-kun, what distracted you when you caught my kick earlier?" "Oh," Naruto said, glancing at her feet. "Your nail polish. I don't recall you ever wearing any before. It looks nice on you." Hinata's cheeks flushed slightly, a soft pink blooming on her pale skin. "Thank you, Naruto-kun. I don't usually wear it, but Kurenai-sensei and I went for a quick pedicure as a celebration for becoming an official team." "That was nice of Yuhi-san," Naruto remarked thoughtfully. Hinata smiled. "So was your plant, Naruto-kun. I really like it." Naruto nodded, feeling pleased that his gift was appreciated. He paused for a moment before asking, "Hinata, I have a question." Hinata nodded, signaling for him to continue. "Well, when I was buying your gift today, Ino-chan came in and told me we were friends and that I should call her Chan. Before that, I ran into a woman who also called herself Chan. I don't feel particularly close to either of them, not like I do with you, so, can I call you Chan?" Hinata's heart fluttered at his request. It was such a simple thing, but it felt personal and special coming from Naruto. "Of course, Naruto-kun," she said with a soft smile. "I didn't know you and Ino-san were close." Naruto shrugged. "I didn't either. She just announced we were friends in her family's flower shop." Hinata chuckled quietly, though she made a mental note to talk to Ino about trying to take advantage of Naruto's good nature. For now, though, she was content. "Would you like a second round?" Hinata asked, her voice light with enthusiasm. "Hi," Naruto replied with a determined smile. They both stood and returned to the mats, ready to spar again. What neither of them knew was that they were being observed from the shadows. From a distance, Hayashi Hyuga watched the pair train. His expression was unreadable, though his thoughts were heavy. Naruto's influence on Hinata had been undeniable, her confidence had grown, and her skills had improved more than they had in years of clan training. Hayashi wasn't sure how to feel about it. He had always believed in the superiority of the Hyuga methods, but watching his daughter spar with Naruto, he was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Naruto Uzumaki was more than just an outsider. He was someone who brought out the best in his daughter. And that was something Hayashi couldn't ignore. The day had been long for Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of Konoha. It seemed that with each passing day, the burdens of leadership grew heavier on his shoulders. He hated being stuck in that chair, this Hokage's chair that had seen so much during his long tenure. It wasn't just the decisions and paperwork that weighed on him, but the lingering thought of his wayward students, Jiraiya and Tsunade. He had often contemplated how to bring them back, to get one of them to take the Hokage's seat from him. If only they could return, especially Tsunade, who had the strength and wisdom to lead the village forward. If he were 20 years younger, he knew exactly whom he'd groom for the position. A boy who carried the will of fire like a beacon, almost in defiance of everything reality had thrown at him. Hiruzen cracked a small smile at the thought of Naruto Uzumaki, his favorite blonde. Though Naruto wasn't officially his student, the boy had soaked up every morsel of wisdom Hiruzen had managed to give him, growing exponentially in recent years. Hiruzen's eyes fell on the Fuin beads he wore, a marvel of Naruto's ingenuity and expertise in Fuinjutsu. The beads were more than just an invention, they were a testament to Naruto's creativity and intelligence, a blend of sealing techniques, chakra control, and practical application. Naruto's invention had even motivated the old Hokage to start training again, and he could feel the difference in his body. And to think it had come from a child. Hiruzen was immensely proud of Naruto. But the boy didn't seem to fully grasp just how groundbreaking his creation was. Twisting one of the beads between his fingers, Hiruzen's thoughts turned to his wayward students once more. Perhaps Naruto's Fuinjutsu was the key to bringing them back. Jiraiya, for one, loved sealing techniques, and the chance to see something new, something innovative, might just be enough to stoke his curiosity. As for Tsunade, she would be harder to convince, but not impossible. How could she turn down the opportunity to see a fully functioning auxiliary chakra system in action? And not to mention, Naruto's adaptation of her basic diagnostic jutsu into something so advanced and practical. Surely the allure of advancing medical ninjutsu and Fuinjutsu together would be too strong for her to resist. Hiruzen smiled to himself. Yes, this could work. Tomorrow, he'd begin the process of recalling them both. Jiraiya would come for his curiosity, and Tsunade, well, he'd have to craft the message carefully for her. But for now, the old Hokage was tired. He was just about to wrap things up for the night when his assistant informed him of a visitor. "It's Naruto," the assistant said, her tone conveying warmth, knowing how fond the Hokage was of the boy. "Ah, let him in," Hiruzen said, his weariness lifting slightly. He could always make time for Naruto. Naruto entered the office with his usual greeting, "Hi, Aji-san." He walked in casually, like he always did, and took a seat without ceremony. "Good evening, Naruto-kun," Hiruzen replied with a smile. "What brings you here tonight?" "I have a couple of questions, Aji-san." "They should be pretty quick," Naruto said, his expression serious but relaxed. "Of course, Naruto-kun. How can I help you?" Hiruzen leaned forward, genuinely curious. Naruto didn't hesitate. "How do you know if you're developing a sexual fetish?" Hiruzen blinked, then slowly brought his hand to his face and sighed. Of all the questions, this boy couldn't be boring if he tried. Hiruzen took a moment to gather his thoughts, trying not to laugh. The vibrations he felt through the walls told him his ANBU were also trying, and failing, to suppress their laughter. They had often been witnesses to Naruto's unique brand of bluntness, but this was something else entirely. He cursed the absence of his late wife Biwako, who had helped him talk about such matters with their own sons. Looking at Naruto, who sat there patiently waiting for an answer, Hiruzen sighed again, internally this time. There was no dodging this. Why do you think you're developing a fetish, Naruto-kun? Hiruzen asked, doing his best to keep his voice even and calm. Hinata-chan and I were sparring, Naruto began, and I got distracted by her toes. They were painted, and I thought they looked nice. I almost got kicked in the head because of it. So, I figured that might be a sign of something. Hiruzen fought to keep a straight face. The toes. Of course. Well, Naruto-kun, he began carefully, you're getting to that age where you're starting to notice people you're attracted to. It's natural to notice features like that. But what you described doesn't really rise to the level of fetishism. A fetish is more specific, and you wouldn't know if you had one until you start having sex. Naruto nodded seriously, absorbing the information. Ah, I see. So, I won't know until I start having sex. Which, as I've said, I'll wait until I'm 16. I've already asked 4 girls if they'd be interested. Hiruzen quirked an eyebrow, both impressed by Naruto's forwardness and slightly concerned. And how did that go? He asked, bracing for the answer. I think I got 3 maybes and a no, Naruto replied thoughtfully. Sakura-san seemed really put off by the idea. I think Tenten-san just didn't like how I presented it. Hiruzen coughed lightly. Naruto-kun, some people might find explicit requests like that a bit objectionable. I know that now. Hinata-chan informed me it wasn't the best way to go about it. I probably should have asked her first, then I could have adjusted my approach. Hiruzen pinched the bridge of his nose. You could have also just not asked at all. Naruto tilted his head, clearly perplexed. But how will the girls know I want to have sex with them in the future unless I tell them? Hiruzen sighed, both in exasperation and amusement. Just remember, Naruto-kun, if they don't seem interested, don't pressure them or pursue them, alright? Hi, Naruto said with a firm nod. But why do I have to wait to know if I have a fetish? Hiruzen resisted the urge to bang his head against his desk. The strict definition of a fetish, Naruto-kun, is when a particular obsession or preference becomes the only method of sexual climax for someone. It's more than just liking something, it's when you can't enjoy sex without it. Ah, that makes sense. Thank you, Aji-san, Naruto said, his voice brightening. Hiruzen breathed a silent sigh of relief. Finally, that conversation is over, he thought. But before he could relax, Naruto spoke up again. I have another question, he said. I'm still having trouble with my footwork. Do you know a method to improve it? Hiruzen smiled, grateful for a much easier question this time. Yes, actually. Training Ground 27 has a series of poles high off the ground with just enough room for your feet. They sway in the wind, so practicing your kata on them will help improve your balance and footwork. Just be careful, the falls can be painful. Naruto's face lit up. Thank you, Aji-san. That sounds perfect. Anytime, my boy, Hiruzen replied warmly. Then, his tone shifted slightly as an idea came to him. Naruto-kun, I'm glad you stopped by tonight. I've decided to recall my students, Jiraiya and Tsunade, back to the village in the next day or 2. Do you think you could help me with that? Naruto tilted his head curiously. How? Hiruzen leaned back in his chair. I need a multi-tiered encrypted message for Jiraiya, something to really capture his attention. And for Tsunade, I'd like you to prepare one of your diagnostic beads like the one you made for me. Naruto's eyes lit up, but then he hesitated. I know I said I wouldn't just create them for anyone, Aji-san. But, since her book helped me create it, I guess I can make an exception. Hiruzen chuckled, knowing how meticulous Naruto was about who received his creations. Thank you, Naruto-kun. I promise, this will be worth it. I'll put a clone on that one, Naruto added. That way I can focus on other projects too. That's fine. I'm sure the craftsmanship will be just as excellent, Hiruzen said, smiling warmly. What should the message say? Naruto asked. Hiruzen only smiled mysteriously, his mind already crafting the perfect words to bring his students home. Leave that to me, the third Hokage said, his eyes twinkling with both nostalgia and anticipation. He had a plan, and with Naruto's help, it was already in motion. The day had already been long for Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, but it was about to get even longer. After receiving a visit from one of Naruto's clones, which had delivered the encrypted message and Fuin beads he had requested, Hiruzen found himself reflecting on the boy's rapid progress. Naruto never failed to impress him. The boy had completed the tasks overnight, something even seasoned shinobi would have taken longer to do. Hiruzen thanked the clone before it dispelled, leaving him to compose the letters to his wayward students, Jiraiya and Tsunade. As always, he knew their general whereabouts, so sending out his messages wouldn't be difficult. He hoped, though, that their responses wouldn't be colored by adult-onset petulance, as he privately referred to it. Both of his students were notorious for their stubbornness, Tsunade especially. With the messages composed, Hiruzen summoned 2 messenger monkeys, briefed them on their destinations, and sent them off. Just as the second monkey disappeared into the distance, his office door creaked open. Hiruzen didn't have to look up to know who it was. The weight of the air had shifted, and with it came the familiar, unwelcome presence of Danzo Shimura. I don't recall giving you access to my office, Shimura, Hiruzen said without lifting his gaze from his papers. His tone was sharp, brimming with the years of tension that had accumulated between the 2 old shinobi. Danzo, unbothered by the greeting, sighed softly as he stepped into the room. His cane tapped lightly against the wooden floor. Must every meeting begin like this, Hiruzen? Danzo's voice was controlled, but the weariness in it was unmistakable. Hiruzen finally looked up, his face stern. I could remove your head, and then we'd have no more meetings. Years ago, Danzo would have dismissed such a remark as an idle threat, but times had changed. Hiruzen had changed. Ever since the Uchiha massacre, Hiruzen had regained some of the edge he'd lost over the years, and Danzo knew he couldn't take that lightly. It was good for the village, Hiruzen's renewed sharpness, but it made things more difficult for Danzo and his clandestine operations with Root. Still, Danzo pressed on. I'm not here to fight, Hiruzen. I'm here to make a request. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow, folding his hands in front of him. Oh? And what could you possibly want that involves me? Danzo took a step forward, the lines on his face deepening. A young boy I've been training, around Naruto's age. I want to arrange a meeting between them, essentially a playdate. His voice lacked its usual cunning edge, almost as if the idea had come from genuine concern. Hiruzen's eyes widened, disbelief written across his face. You must have the biggest set of balls in the elemental nations, he muttered in astonishment. I told you, Shimura, if you ever approach Naruto without me present, I'll kill you. And now you ask me to expose him to one of your Root trainees? Danzo didn't flinch. He met Hiruzen's gaze, his usual cold calculation softened just slightly. Well, frankly, I do. But that's beside the point. Naruto has me reconsidering a few things. I believe this boy, Sai, could benefit from meeting him. I think they could hit it off. It would be beneficial for both of them. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed. You expect me to believe you want a simple friendship to develop between a Root agent and Naruto? Danzo nodded. Yes. Believe it or not, Hiruzen, I don't have ulterior motives here. Sai won't fit in with the team you've assigned him to. You know that as well as I do. And Naruto, well, the boy would benefit from having a different kind of training partner, one who doesn't belong to a clan or have emotional attachments to the village's inner workings. I expect Kakashi to manage those personality clashes, Hiruzen replied tersely. Danzo snorted softly. You can expect gumdrops from rain clouds, Hiruzen, but that doesn't make it reasonable. Hiruzen gave him an incredulous look. I just didn't expect you to know what gumdrops were. Danzo's one visible eye twitched. Now you're just being an ass. Hiruzen let out a rare laugh at that, the tension in the room easing for a brief moment. You know what I'm saying, Hiruzen, Danzo continued, his voice losing some of its edge. Naruto is a force of nature. I believe that introducing him to Sai could have a positive effect on both boys. Sai is missing something. Naruto could fill that void. And Naruto could use a partner that challenges him in ways the Uchiha can't. This isn't a trick. I don't want to manipulate Naruto, I've had enough of that game. Hiruzen's laughter faded, replaced by a more serious expression. If I agree to this, it will be under strict supervision. Full ANBU guard, and if I sense even a hint of subterfuge, there won't be any, Danzo interrupted. I'll agree to the ANBU guard. This is about two boys, Hiruzen. They deserve a chance to connect, and I think Sai could help Naruto grow in ways you don't anticipate. Hiruzen stared at his old rival for a long moment, assessing his words. He was a master at reading people, and what he saw now wasn't the scheming, shadow-loving Danzo he had once known. There was exhaustion. A weariness. That Hiruzen hadn't seen in him before. After a few moments, Hiruzen sighed and leaned back in his chair. Very well, Hiruzen said at last. But I'll be watching closely. Come back tomorrow, and we can set something up. Danzo nodded, a flicker of relief crossing his face. Thank you, Hiruzen. He turned to leave, the weight of his cane heavier than before. As the door closed behind him, Hiruzen couldn't help but reflect on the man who had once been his closest friend, then his greatest rival. Danzo Shimura was a relic of a bygone era, one that had been shaped by the Second Shinobi World War and the harsh lessons that came with it. But somewhere along the line, the fires of ambition that once fueled Danzo had dimmed. What Hiruzen couldn't know, what no one could know, was that Danzo had grown tired. Root, once his pride and joy, had lost its luster. The hard decisions, the sacrifices, the countless manipulations, it had all worn him down. He had once believed in the necessity of shadow games, in being the unseen protector of Konoha. But over time, the toll had caught up with him. Naruto Uzumaki, the boy he had tried to use as a pariah, had forced him to reconsider many of his choices. Outing Naruto as the Jinchuriki had been one of the hardest decisions Danzo had made. He had justified it by saying it was for the village's good, that a pariah would unite Konoha in its fear and hatred, bringing them together. And it had worked, too well, in fact. The people of Konoha hadn't stopped despising Naruto, and the boy's development had suffered because of it. Danzo had thought the villagers would eventually move past their fear, but they hadn't. They were supposed to recognize the boy's strength, his resemblance to Minato Namikaze, but instead, they had clung to their hatred for far too long. Danzo had hoped Naruto would grow into a weapon, but instead, the boy had grown into something else, something stronger and more resilient than any weapon ever could be. Naruto embodied the will of fire, and that realization had forced Danzo to question his own beliefs. In Sai, Danzo saw a younger version of himself, a boy trained to suppress his emotions, to act as a tool for the village. But unlike the other root operatives, Sai wasn't as far gone. There was still hope for him. And Danzo believed that Naruto, with his unwavering spirit and knack for making friends, could be the one to help Sai reclaim his humanity. The game of shadows no longer held the same appeal for Danzo. The sacrifices he had once embraced now felt like burdens he didn't want to carry anymore. And while his methods had been ruthless, there was a part of him that still believed in Konoha's future, in honoring those who sacrificed themselves for the village. Danzo had made his choices, but now, he was ready to let the next generation lead. Perhaps Naruto and Sai could find in each other what he and Hiruzen had lost long ago: brotherhood, trust, and the future of Konoha. No more sacrifices, Danzo thought to himself as he exited the Hokage Tower. Just this one good deed. And for the first time in a long time, he felt a strange sense of peace. As Hiruzen Sarutobi wrapped up his daily duties, the unexpected visit from one of Naruto's clones had been a welcome break from the monotony. He had known the boy wouldn't waste time on the tasks he'd given him, but he hadn't expected Naruto to finish so quickly. The clone had delivered the encrypted seal and Fuin beads, a sign of Naruto's ever-growing competence in sealing techniques. Hiruzen had thanked the clone for the swift turnaround before it dispelled, leaving him to his other, more pressing tasks, contacting his wayward students. Hiruzen worked steadily, composing carefully worded messages to Jiraiya and Tsunade, knowing their unpredictable temperaments could make this more difficult than it needed to be. He hoped they wouldn't respond with what he liked to call adult-onset petulance. They were far too old for such antics, but Jiraiya in particular had a way of proving him wrong. Once the messages were complete, he summoned 2 messenger monkeys, gave them the instructions and coordinates, and sent them off. It wasn't until the second monkey had vanished into the distance that his office door opened, and the oppressive presence of someone entirely unwelcome filled the room. Without even looking up, Hiruzen knew who it was. "I don't recall giving you access to my office, Shimura," Hiruzen said coolly, his eyes not leaving the documents on his desk. Danzo Shimura, the darkness of the shinobi world, sighed in response, stepping into the room with his familiar, deliberate gait. There was always an unspoken tension between them, a clash of ideals and values that stretched back decades. Hiruzen had always believed in transparency and compassion, while Danzo thrived in shadows and manipulation. "Must every meeting start like this?" Danzo said, his voice carrying an undertone of weariness that was easy to miss unless you'd known him for as long as Hiruzen had. Hiruzen lifted his gaze, his eyes cold. "I could remove your head, and then we'd have no more meetings." Years ago, Danzo would have dismissed such a comment as an empty threat. But these days, Hiruzen had regained some of his former edge, sharpened by the years and recent events. Danzo had noticed this shift in him. It was good for Konoha but made things much more difficult for Danzo's clandestine operations. He sighed again, knowing this conversation wasn't going to be easy. "I'm not here to fight," Danzo said, his voice calm. "I'm here to make a request." Hiruzen raised an eyebrow, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Oh? And what could you possibly want that involves me?" Danzo's expression was neutral, though Hiruzen could sense the calculation behind his words. "There's a young boy I've been training, around Naruto's age. I'd like to arrange a meeting between them, well, essentially a playdate. I think the two would hit it off." Hiruzen stared at him in disbelief, his mind reeling at the sheer audacity of the request. He had to pause for a moment to process what Danzo had just said. "You must have the biggest set of balls in the entire elemental nations," Hiruzen muttered incredulously. "I told you if you ever approached Naruto without me present, I'd kill you. And now you want me to expose him to one of your rude agents?" Danzo didn't flinch. "Well, frankly, I do. But that's beside the point. The young Uzumaki has caused me to reconsider a few things. I think that Naruto and Sai becoming friends would benefit them both. Sai won't fit in with that team you assigned him to, and you have to know that. I expect Kakashi to handle the personality clashes," Hiruzen replied sharply, unwilling to bend to Danzo's reasoning just yet. Danzo shook his head, a wry smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You can expect gumdrops from rain clouds, Hiruzen, but that doesn't make it reasonable." Hiruzen blinked, caught off guard by the strange analogy. "I just didn't expect you to know what gumdrops were." Danzo's eyebrow twitched slightly. "Now you're just being an ass." Hiruzen let out a rare chuckle, the tension between them easing for a moment. Despite their differences, they had once been close friends, and sometimes, just sometimes, that old camaraderie resurfaced. "If I agree to this," Hiruzen said, his tone growing serious again, "it will be under strict supervision. Full ANBU guard. And if I sense even a whiff of manipulation from you, there won't be any," Danzo interrupted, his voice softer than usual. "I promise. This isn't a trick, Hiruzen. I genuinely believe these boys can relate to each other. Naruto could help Sai, and Sai, well, he could help Naruto in ways that you might not anticipate." Hiruzen stared at him for a long moment, weighing the man's words. Danzo had always been a master manipulator, but there was something different about him now. Something tired. He didn't seem to be playing his usual games. For once, there was no malice in his gaze, just a quiet determination. "Very well," Hiruzen finally said. "But I'll be watching. Come back tomorrow, and we can set something up." Danzo nodded, his relief barely visible but palpable to someone who knew him as well as Hiruzen. "Thank you, Hiruzen," he said, turning to leave. As the door closed behind him, Hiruzen leaned back in his chair, his mind filled with conflicting thoughts. Danzo Shimura, the man who had been both his closest ally and his greatest rival, was an enigma. He had always operated in the shadows, using manipulation, secrecy, and hard choices to protect Konoha. But now, there was something different about him. Danzo was tired. After decades of playing the game of shadows, after making so many hard decisions, so many sacrifices, he was no longer the same man. He had lost the taste for it. The years of scheming, of manipulating people like chess pieces, had worn him down. Even the Uchiha massacre, one of Danzo's most decisive actions, hadn't given him the satisfaction it once would have. It was a last-ditch attempt to be his old self, to play the role of the hidden protector of Konoha. But Danzo had grown weary of that life. In Naruto, Danzo saw something he hadn't expected: hope. The boy had defied everything Danzo had predicted. Outing Naruto as the Jinchuriki had been a calculated risk, one Danzo believed would unite the village by providing a common enemy. He had expected Konoha to rally around their hatred and fear, then eventually grow to accept the boy. But instead, the people's fear had lingered, and Naruto's development had been hindered because of it. Danzo had thought he was forging a weapon, but Naruto had become something else entirely, a beacon of the will of fire. And that realization had caused Danzo to reconsider everything. Sai, the last and youngest of his root operatives, was a boy much like Naruto, isolated, lacking emotional connections. Danzo had trained Sai to be an emotionless tool, but now, he wondered if that had been the right choice. Sai was strong, talented, and disciplined, but he was also incomplete. And Danzo believed that Naruto, with his infectious optimism and ability to forge connections, could help Sai find the humanity that Danzo had once tried to suppress. The idea of a friendship between Naruto and Sai wasn't part of some larger manipulation. It was, in fact, Danzo's last hope of making something good out of the darkness he had lived in for so long. He didn't want more sacrifices. He didn't want to turn either of them into mere tools of the village. For the first time in a long time, Danzo wanted to do something right. As Danzo walked through the halls of the Hokage Tower, he reflected on how much had changed. He had spent his life in the shadows, believing that sacrifices had to be made for Konoha's survival. But now, the thought of sacrifices no longer appealed to him. Sai was the last child he had trained en route, and he didn't want the boy to be lost to the darkness. If Naruto could save Sai, then perhaps Danzo could leave something good behind, something that didn't require another life, another soul, to be sacrificed for the sake of the village. He just wanted to leave the shadows behind, if only for this one good deed. As Naruto worked alongside his teammates, his thoughts remained calm, despite the tension building between them. Sakura's frustration was palpable as she complained about the backbreaking task of pulling roots under the blazing sun. Her annoyance was amplified by the midday heat, and it didn't help that Sasuke was brooding in his usual silence, but for entirely different reasons. For Sasuke, the irritation wasn't from the physical labor, it was from the growing enigma that was Naruto Uzumaki. The Uchiha couldn't make sense of the boy. At the academy, Naruto had been the class clown, unremarkable in most areas except for his occasional outbursts and antics. He had struggled with the clone jutsu, failed in theoretical lessons, and seemed uninterested in anything that didn't involve pranks. And yet today, Naruto had easily outmaneuvered him during their training, setting Kakashi in a pre-planned Fuinjutsu trap and demonstrating a level of competency far beyond what Sasuke had anticipated. Even more unsettling, Naruto had performed a solid shadow clone jutsu, a technique that was advanced, even by their sensei's standards. This was not the Naruto he thought he knew. It grated on Sasuke, and his patience finally snapped. If you can make solid clones, why aren't you using them to speed this up? Sasuke's voice was tight with frustration, though he tried to mask it. His eyes flickered toward Naruto, waiting for an explanation. Naruto didn't look up from his work. I find my pace acceptable, Sasuke-san. The casual dismissal only fanned the flames of Sasuke's irritation. Sakura, overhearing the exchange, chimed in, desperate for anything that might speed up the tedious task. Sasuke-kun is right. Why not just make some clones so we can get out of here faster? Naruto glanced at her briefly before resuming his steady pace. Why should I do more work than the rest of you? Unless you're offering to compensate me, I'm willing to entertain an offer. Sasuke stared at him, disbelief coloring his face. Compensate you? You want us to pay you? Naruto shrugged, his hands continuing their methodical work. I would be doing more of the work, Sasuke-san. Isn't it reasonable that I receive something in recognition of that fact? Sasuke clenched his fists, trying to keep his temper in check. Getting done faster is the reward. Perhaps for you, Naruto replied, not missing a beat. But as I said, I find my work rate acceptable. They're just clones, they don't cost you anything. Sasuke's voice rose, the irritation breaking through. Maybe, maybe not, Naruto said calmly. But I have a resource you wish to exploit. I'm agreeable to that, if you have something of equal value to exchange. Sasuke's glare intensified. I'm not giving you anything. That's fine, Naruto responded nonchalantly, continuing to pull at the roots with steady efficiency, as if the conversation was little more than background noise. Up in the trees, Kakashi was watching the entire exchange with mild amusement. A soft chuckle escaped him as he observed the unfolding situation. Naruto's approach was interesting, to say the least. It was mercenary, yes, but Kakashi couldn't argue with his logic. Naruto would indeed be doing more work if he used his clones to speed up the process, and it wasn't unreasonable for him to expect something in return. Negotiation was one of the most important skills a ninja could have. It was clear that Naruto had grasped that concept, even if his teammates hadn't. Kakashi shook his head, wondering what exactly they taught at the Ninja Academy these days. The other two seemed oblivious to the idea of bartering or haggling, a skill that could be the difference between life and death in certain situations. As much as Kakashi believed in the importance of teamwork, he appreciated that Naruto wasn't just a pushover. If the others wanted Naruto to do more work, they'd have to strike a deal. It was an important lesson in its own right. Suddenly, Kakashi's senses alerted him to a presence on the same branch as him. He didn't seem startled but did shift his gaze briefly, noticing the clone of Naruto beside him. Are you the real one or a clone? Kakashi asked lazily, his eyes still half closed. Clone, Hatake-sensei, the Naruto clone replied politely. Hm. And what can I do for you today, Clone-kun? Boss was curious about the book you were reading. What's it about? Kakashi glanced down at his prized possession, Ika Ika Paradise. He gave his usual eye smile. Oh, this? Adult things. The clone tilted its head. Like inter-village trade during a speculative crisis? Who knew tulips could be so significant? Kakashi almost snorted but managed to hold back. No, not adult like that. Adult like relationships. Romance novels, the clone inquired. I think Sakura-san used to read those during breaks at the academy. That doesn't seem very adult. Kakashi chuckled inwardly. The clone clearly had no idea what Aika Aika was really about. But he couldn't allow the glorious work of Jiraiya-sama to be reduced to mere romance novels. This was the height of erotic literature, a true masterpiece. The clone needed to understand that. Sex, Clone-kun, Kakashi clarified. The book is about sex. Oh, cool. Can I read it? Where could I get a copy? They don't sell these to kids, Kakashi replied, amused at the clone's bluntness. The clone seemed to consider this, then countered, I can buy weaponry. I can make an explosive array powerful enough to level the Hokage monument. That seems irrational. Can I just borrow yours then? Kakashi laughed at that. The boy had a point, in his own way. Ma. Why so interested? Aren't you a little young for this? For one, it's interesting enough for you to split your focus during an official mission. Additionally, research. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Research? Hi. I've presented multiple women with the offer to engage in sexual intercourse. I may even get to date a kunoichi named Enko-chan. Kakashi froze, the name catching his attention immediately. Wait, time out. You asked out Mitarashi Anko? Not exactly, but she did say she'd consider it when I'm older, the clone replied with a completely straight face. Kakashi could only stare, his mind racing. Was this real? Had Naruto really managed to catch Anko's attention? He needed to tread carefully here. The possibilities were intriguing. So, what about Aika Aika will aid you in your research? Kakashi asked, suddenly more invested in the conversation. While there are guides to help perform sexually, fiction can aid in creativity, the clone said seriously. Yup. Kakashi was convinced now, Naruto was a budding pervert in the making. But not just any pervert. If he played his cards right, he could mold the boy into something great. Not a low-level sleaze, no, but the coolest kind of pervert. A gentleman pervert. The thought filled Kakashi with glee. Minato-sensei's son would carry on the legacy, but with class. Yes, Naruto was truly a once-in-a-generation find. Kakashi nodded sagely at the clone, already planning for the boy's inevitable education in the finer points of life. But first, he needed to clarify one thing. So, of these offers Naruto made, are all of them kunoichi? Kakashi asked, trying to get a better sense of his students' preferences. The clone nodded. Yes. Why? I could say it's because we're often around kunoichi. But more than that, boss likes pretty girls who can fight. Kakashi's mind flashed back to a conversation he had long ago with his sensei, Minato Namikaze. Sensei, why do you like Kushina-san so much? She's the exact opposite of you. Minato had smiled softly, his eyes full of warmth. I wouldn't say she's the exact opposite. Kushina can be wonderfully kind and caring. And yes, she can be quite spirited. But what can I say? I like a pretty girl who can fight. Kakashi grinned behind his mask. You'll be the one, Chibi, he thought to himself. I'll make sure of it. Naruto would become the ultimate pervert, a man of sophistication, creativity, and class. The very peak of what Kakashi could only dream of becoming. What Kakashi couldn't know was that, somewhere in Konoha, several kunoichi, including Anko and Kurenai, all shivered simultaneously, feeling an inexplicable sense of foreboding. Somewhere, Kakashi was up to something. And it couldn't be good. 2 days later, in a distant part of the Land of Fire, Jiraiya was making his way through a well-worn path when he spotted a monkey summons waiting for him. The Toad Sage was familiar with these summons. His old sensei, Hiruzen, used them when he had something time-sensitive to communicate. Jiraiya-sama, a message from Hiruzen-sama, the black-haired monkey said, bowing slightly as it approached. The monkey was only knee-high, but it carried with it a sense of urgency. Jiraiya took the scroll, his curiosity piqued. He unrolled it and read the message carefully. Jiraiya, contained within this scroll is an encryption seal designed by your godson and our most recent acknowledged seal master. If you cannot break the seal by the end of today, I expect you to return to the village immediately. If you can break it, follow the directions contained therein. If you disregard this summons or delay your return, I will come for you personally, bow staff in hand. You don't want that, Jiraiya. Trust me. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Sandaime Hokage. Jiraiya blinked, reading the message 3 more times to make sure he wasn't hallucinating. His godson, Minato's boy, was already a seal master? At 12? That was nearly unheard of, even for an Uzumaki. The revelation stirred something deep within Jiraiya, a sense of pride, yes, but also a burning curiosity. Part of him wanted to rush back to Konoha immediately, the challenge of Hiruzen's seal be damned. But the other part of him, the seal master, was eager to test his godson's skill. If Naruto had truly become a seal master, then Jiraiya was about to be in for a treat. With a deep breath, Jiraiya pumped chakra into the storage seal at the bottom of the letter. A second scroll emerged, neatly sealed. Jiraiya unrolled it, studying the intricate design Naruto had created. He stared at the seal for several minutes, his expression shifting from curiosity to confusion, then to something bordering on disbelief. "What the hell is this?" he muttered, staring at the seal as though it were some alien language. For the rest of the day, Jiraiya wrestled with the encryption seal, attempting to unravel its secrets. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he finally gave in, summoning one of his toads to send a message to his contact before charging off toward Konoha. There was no way he was going to miss this. Outside the land of vegetables, Tsunade sat under the shade of a large tree, her head throbbing from the remnants of a hangover. Her pet pig, Tauntaun, snuggled in her lap while her longtime apprentice, Shizun, trained nearby. Tsunade had no interest in training today, not with her head pounding like this. She could have sobered herself up with a simple jutsu, but why bother? When you could punch through mountains and lift giant toads' weapons, people rarely questioned your choices. Her peaceful respite was interrupted by the arrival of a small, white-furred monkey. Like Jiraiya, Tsunade recognized her sensei's summons immediately. She sighed heavily, already knowing this message wasn't going to be like the others. It wasn't going to be a warning or a simple update, it was going to be a summons. The monkey handed her a scroll, and Tsunade unrolled it, her eyes scanning the familiar handwriting of her old teacher. "Tsunade-chan, the time has come, dear girl. The village needs its last senju and most prodigious medic. I have allowed your absence for so long because I knew you blamed me for your losses. I blamed myself as well. But more than enough time has passed. Not only will I be instituting your long-suggested medical ninja training program, but I have something that may interest you. In the seal contained below is the work of our newest and youngest ever seal master. Using your cousin Taka Senju's and your book for inspiration, he accomplished something truly impressive at the age of 10. He is a genin now, and I know you two could do something wonderful together. Untold medical breakthroughs await, Tsunade. Please come home. Sarutobi Hiruzen, Sandaime Hokage. P.S. Tsunade, if you destroy the contents of that storage scroll in a bout of childishness, I will know. And I will come for you. If you don't want to be dragged across the elemental nations by your pigtails, Then please respect the work this young man did solely because I requested it of him. Tsunade's heart skipped a beat. She knew Hiruzen well enough to know he meant every word. He would drag her back to Konoha if he had to, pigtails and all. But beyond the threat, the message stirred something deep within her, curiosity. This boy, this seal master. He had used her book as inspiration. Curiosity piqued, she fed chakra into the storage seal at the bottom of the letter. A small bracelet, adorned with 2 engraved beads, appeared in her hand. She examined it closely, recognizing the intricate seal work etched into the beads. She pulsed chakra into the first bead and immediately felt a foreign chakra enter her system, a diagnostic jutsu, but one that felt tailored to her. After the seal stopped glowing, she pulsed the second bead, and a detailed projection of her medical information appeared in front of her, visible only to her eyes. Her breath caught in her throat. The implications of this kind of technique were staggering. She remembered the simple diagnostic jutsu she had written about in her book. It was basic, meant to be a teaching tool for new medics. But this took it to a level she hadn't imagined. It was a game changer, a tool that could revolutionize medical practice, especially in the field. No longer would medics have to rely purely on intuition or feeling. This could provide real data, quickly and efficiently. Tsunade stood up abruptly, her hangover forgotten. She had made a decision. Shizune, she called out to her apprentice. Gather your things. We're going back to Konoha. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Support the original author by clicking their profile link in the pinned comment of the first video of this series. They deserve the love. Want early access and exclusive content? Join my Patreon community, link below. Your support fuels these videos. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay entertained, stay safe. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Support the original author by clicking their profile link in the pinned comment of the first video of this series. They deserve the love. Want early access and exclusive content? Join my Patreon community, link below. Your support fuels these videos. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay entertained, stay safe.